the following applications, all times listed or as soon thereafter may be reached. At such time, all interested parties will be given an opportunity to be heard. Any disabled person who needs a sign language interpreter or special accommodations to attend this meeting is asked to please contact Constituent Services at 631-224-5380 as early as possible in order for the town to accommodate. And this is John M. Lorenzo, Chairman of the Zoning Board of Appeals, this young man right here, not him. Calendar 745-22, Josephine Wahaskik. Permission to leave roofed over patio having floor area ratio of 29% instead of permitted 25%, resident B district, north side of Deer Road, 75 feet east of Port Avenue, Ronkonkoma, New York. Please step forward and be heard. Oh, there you are. How do you pronounce your last name, please?
Josephine Warhats. Test. Oh, there we go.
Try that again so we can get it, please.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. Christina Fry, an attorney with office at 7 Pine Ridge Drive, Smithtown, New York, 11787. On behalf of Josephine Warhat, 301 Deer Road, we're before the board requesting an FAR increase from 25% to 29%. This is due to a 23.5 by 13-foot roof over patio that they added to the rear of the house several years ago. That is in line with the roof line of the house and not easily removed, therefore before the board this evening. It has not caused any devaluation to the surrounding communities and properties, and it also is in character with the neighborhood. I have researched, there is precedent for such an increase in the FAR, and I'm here before you today asking for a variance grant on their behalf.
Thank you very much. As you know, this board sees up to 30% for FAR, even though the code states 25. That's our threshold. You're right under that. Does anyone wish to be heard in this application? The board have any questions? Mr. Sullivan, I'll take a motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Application granted. Have a great night.
Good evening, thank you.
Next is Caleb Hanaqua. Permission to leave one-story addition, 11 by 24, having side yard of 13.2 feet instead of required 14 feet, Residence A District, south side of Wall Street, 225.18 feet west of Carlton Avenue, East Islip, New York. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir. Name and address for the record, please.
Caleb Haneke, 69 East Bayberry Road, Islip, New York.
Great. How are you tonight?
Good.
Good. You have seeking permission for a one-story addition, a little bit too close. It just appears that it's in the northwest corner,
Yes, sir.
13.2 instead of 14. Seems de minimis. Take a vote. Does anyone wish to be heard in this application? Does the board have any questions? Mr. Nicole, I'll take a motion.
Motion to grant the application.
All in favor?
Aye.
Application granted. Have a good night.
Thank you, sir.
Next, Liborio Quizada. Potato. Permission to leave cellar entrance having side yard of 10.3 feet instead of required 14 feet. Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Name and address for the record, please.
93 Nassau Avenue, Islip, New York.
And your name?
My name is Liborio Quesada.
How are you tonight?
Good.
You have a cellar entrance a little too close, never to be enclosed?
No,
You're never going to enclose it
no.
as part of the house? Deirdre, any objection from planning? Does anyone wish to be heard in this application? No. Just name and address for the record if you don't mind. No, you got to go up there. I'm sorry, we can't hear you. Can you step aside, sir?
Kristen Carter, 83 Nassau Avenue, Islip, New York.
How are you tonight?
Hi, how are you? First, I have a letter from a neighbor who has COVID and could not attend. I don't know if I
You can
need
give
to
it to
read this or.
to Jay right behind you.
I live across the street from this property. We are vehemently opposed to any kind of cellar entrance being permitted here. It seems this is being done for the purpose of a basement apartment. Otherwise, an egress window would probably suffice. There are no permits, I don't believe, for construction of an apartment. This is a small bungalow, never intended for multiple families, nor can the size of the small corner lot support parking for multiple families. I believe a stop work order has been issued, however, work continues. The property's been turned into an eyesore, siding has been removed. The backyard has been ripped up, turned into a dirt pile. It's a blight on our lovely Victorian neighborhood. It's not maintained properly. The safety of the neighborhood is at risk. There's constantly debris all over the sidewalk. And it's actually embarrassing to have people come to my house because this house is just such an eyesore and blight. Thank you.
No problem, thank you. So just, would you like me to? For a moment? You know, I appreciate you coming and speaking. I'm sure the board does also. The cellar entrance is in front of us tonight. That's it. There's nothing regarding an apartment or any of that. So we as a board have to look at it with a few factors, but one of them is, you know, have we seen something like this before? Nature and the character of the neighborhood, cellar entrances, we see them a lot. I believe if Deirdre said no objection from planning, she's the planning representative, I'm assuming there's been some precedent in the area that has a cellar entrance a little bit, or something a little bit close to the side yard. That being said, we take your words seriously, and it's on the record, but that's not in front of us tonight other than the cellar
Okay,
entrance
but
and the side
our
yard.
concern is, why is there a need for a cellar entrance? There was one, I believe. I don't know why it was moved.
I don't know that.
I don't know.
Maybe we can inquire.
I don't believe that's been removed. I think the way the application is written, or the call anyway, is that it was never legal. We just trying to legalize something.
Okay, but
It hasn't changed. Whether that's the case or not, I don't know.
Ma'am, what are your main complaints other than the cellar entrance?
just that the property is not being maintained, and it does seem that there's going to be an apartment put in, which I know is a whole other issue. However, this
That's
is the start of
true.
it.
You heard what our chairman said, but we
Yes.
still like to inquire, how long has the property been in a, if such a word exists, unmaintained condition?
I feel like it's been going on for about a year.
Okay. All right, maybe we'll inquire of the applicant.
Okay,
Our chairman permits it.
Sure.
Mr. Applicant,
thank you.
why is the place in such disrepair?
They got me, they put me a stop working order, and he said that
Well, that stop work order doesn't mean leave the place in disrepair and looking like something that we don't want to see. You can still clean it up.
I cleaned the area.
Well,
Everything is clean around, but it's got no siding because they told me that I can't replace anything. And I tried to legalize.
so there's
the
no debris, there's no lumber, there's no building material lying
Nope.
around. Everything is neat and clean.
Everything is clean.
Except the house just is standing there without siding.
Yeah, because I have to replace the whole new parts. But I don't build any apartments. I just, the door, I got it legalized, and that's it. That's the whole thing. And as soon as I got the permit, I have to replace the whole thing. I don't have,
All right. You know, our chairman just showed us photographs that the town took, and it is clean, the property is. We can
Yeah.
show the objective if she wants to
Every time that
see,
they
but-
told me
Hang
to-
on, hang on. It is clean. Well, I'm looking at the photographs. But it's usually taken within the last 30, 45 days. But anyway, okay, I end up, I'm good. If you have any, what you believe are complaints, then again, we're not the complaint department. We're not trying to shuck our responsibility, but you would call code enforcement. Okay.
Deirdre, there is precedent for side yard relief?
Looks like a job site.
Yeah.
Dokes. Does anyone else wish to be heard in this application? Does the board have any further questions? Mr. Wex, I'll take a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll make a motion to grant the application.
All in favor?
Never to be enclosed.
Never to be enclosed. All right,
all
have
right,
a good night.
thank you.
Next, Jorge Marca. Permission to use dwelling for two-family, family use only pursuant to Islip Town Code Section 68-419.1, and to leave shed having side yard of 3 feet instead of required 4 feet and having 15 feet behind the front of the dwelling instead of required 20 feet. Residence A District.
Good evening, Ms. Trella. Name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, Roxanne Trella, Dynamic Expediting Services with offices at 1040 Terry Road, Ronkonkoma, New York.
How are you tonight?
I'm good, how are you?
Good.
So we're here for a shed, which is 12.9 by 21. It is 15 feet behind the front line instead of the required 20 and maintains a 3-foot side yard instead of 4. And we're also here to establish a family use only, and the required documentation has been provided.
So I'm looking, taped to the front of this folder is some letters of, I'm assuming neighbors.
Yes.
Sure you know about them?
Yes, I went to the property today, and I was told by the property owner that there had been some discussion in the neighborhood about it. A neighbor had taken photos, so I wanted to go to the property personally so I could see what exactly was going on. In my observation, the front yard was maintained pretty well. There was no overgrown grass or high plantings or wedges or anything like that. I went inside the dwelling. There was a tenant previously on the second floor, which has since moved out. I did observe that the kitchen was still fairly empty. The dining room was empty, living room was empty, and furniture was being moved from the first floor to the second floor. So the property owner was living on the first floor main level, and they had rented the second floor. In light of the application, we are not applying for an accessory, we're applying for a 2-family. So his father is moving in, him and his wife and his children are moving upstairs to the main dwelling, and his father is moving to the first floor. I do know there was also a complaint of a vehicle in disrepair that was in the driveway. There was a caravan, and while I was actually at the site today, there was a tow truck picking up that vehicle.
So there's a letter right here dated October 18th of this year. May 2021, the home was changed to multifamily and tenants moved in. The home use was changed to multifamily. It was vacated at the beginning of last month, and about 10 days ago, a moving van began delivering items to the vacated unit, and it's now occupied again.
I was there today, and like I said, the kitchen was empty, dining room empty, living room empty, and they were moving furniture from downstairs to the upstairs. The only person that was home was the property owner's wife. I didn't see anybody else. I had full access to the entire dwelling. There was no separation between each unit. I don't know how else to personally verify that they're the ones that are going to be living there, other than what they've presented to me and what I visibly saw today at the inspection.
Pages. So medical is the criteria based on medical?
Yes.
Is everything in order, Mary?
We do have a letter that typically would qualify for medical exception.
Does anyone wish to be heard in this application? All right, one at a time, please. Come on up. Name and address for the record, speak clearly. And if, just to make it go quicker, I'm willing to hear all of your complaints, but if it's going to be repetitive over and over again, maybe if one or a few people can condense it when they're coming up, or you were more than welcome to come up and hear your complaints. Oh. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. No problem. Thank you. You're all more than welcome. I just wanted to move it. Okay, just wanted to move it along. Good evening.
Good evening.
How are you today?
Well, thank you.
Name and address for the record, please.
Kevin Schmidt, 76 Craig Road, Islip Terrace.
Great. How are you tonight, Mr. Smith?
I'm good, thanks. I live across the street from the neighbor, George. I've talked to him maybe 4 times. He's a nice guy. All my, talking to him, just hello, how are you? Nice guy. 2 years we've been there, though. The experience that we've had has been, you're all fair people, I can see that. And if you live through what we lived through, it's been a nightmare. We've had police chases down our block, condoms on the street, mowed the lawn. Yeah, mowed the lawn now. Probably the second time this summer he mowed the lawn. People coming and going all hours of the night, sleeping in cars at nighttime. 9 cars parked in front of his house during longer than a night. I can't describe to you how odd it's been watching this. We're a neighborhood that's been established and people come and go. We're all friendly to each other. We're friendly to George. I mean, I'll say hello to him every day, but I don't see him that much. And like I said, he seems like a nice guy, but what he's doing or what's going on over there is unprecedented. I mean, I have a history of 2 years of things that have gone on here that are just like people coming and going all hours of the night. When I say all hours of the night, you can get up at 3 a.m. There's people coming and going out of that house. We don't know what's going on, right? So who knows? I've seen 9 different cars parked in front of that house overnight for more than one night. And 5 to 9 cars. And that's typical. That's not one night. That's pretty typical. Although I have to say, in his defense, though, he's been cleaning things up that we've complained to the town about. Okay. There's a van with graffiti parked in the front that's gone. There's gang activity. I'm sure that there was police activity in front of our house where the police chased people coming out of that house. And three police cars chased them down the block and pulled them over and saved them. So this is what we hear through the
So
grapevine.
would you say, not to interrupt you, but would you say that the applicant has removed the, say, tenants, if that's what you're calling
The
them?
tenants that have been a real problem, tenants are gone.
But they're gone.
There's more people moving in. There was a U-Haul truck there like 2 weeks ago. And now people moving out, stuff going in. Maybe it's his stuff, maybe it's not. I don't know. I said, I don't talk to him that much. He's been pleasant to me when I do talk to him. But I can't accept that this is going on in our neighborhood. And, it even get nitty gritty. The Christmas lights were on from last year. Okay, that's like a petty complaint. But, the neighborhood's a nice neighborhood. We've been established and not established too, because we just say hello to each other. Everybody minds their own business. But it's just a pleasant neighborhood. He might be a pleasant person. But with what's going on over there, that's not pleasant. It's terrible. I couldn't wish that on anybody. I've
Appreciate
got grandkids come over and there's condom in the street. It's disgusting.
Sure.
What's going on with that? Maybe that's gone. Maybe that was that first tenant that they had, right? Which was a lot of people coming and going out of that house.
Sure.
Maybe it's corrected. I don't know. Give him the benefit of the doubt. He has correcting things. So we got rid of that car today. That's smashed up car there for over 2 months. Facing in front of my house. That's all you see. Walk out my door, smashed up car right at the foot of his driveway. It's sitting there for 2 months.
Sure.
I mean,
So, and I'm going to speak for the board here. We appreciate everything you're saying. And we can feel your pain in this. And we're going to take it to heart. But the situation we have here is that the applicant is seeking permission for 2-family use only. And if he meets the criteria, we have to look at that also, right? So we're going to appreciate and listen to all your complaints. And we're going to take that into consideration. But we also, what's in front of us here is the 2-family use only.
here's another thing that I witnessed, right? He's building this shed. And the amount of people I've seen come and go out of that house, I question whether that's just going to be a residential shed. I mean, it's been that many people in and out of that house.
Sure. We'll take it.
So, that's my complaint. That's my.
Oh, thank you, sir. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. Does anyone else wish to be heard in this application?
Oh, then there's floodlights in the middle of the night sometimes.
Floodlights?
Floodlights, just floodlights. and I know they have maybe, and I have family over my house coming over my house too, right? But there's floodlights and it's too much.
Sure, appreciate it. I'll take it. Thank you, sir.
All right.
You have a great night.
Thanks.
Next up, name and address for the record, please. You can pull that microphone where it suits you.
Hello, Terry Lesser, 77 Craig Road, Islip Terrace. Oh. I'll go down. Lesser.
How are you tonight?
Good, thank you. My name is Terry Lesser. I submitted a letter to the board yesterday. I just want to confirm that it has been received.
I have it right here.
Okay, great.
Terry Lesser.
Okay, and that'll be, I just wanted to confirm that that has been or will be
Yes.
reviewed
You
before
type
make a
very well.
decision. Okay, I'm sorry.
I said you type very well.
Thank you, sir. It's a dying art. And the people before us, I believe it was Nassau Avenue, somebody submitted a letter and a decision was rendered. I just want to make sure in this case, if people have submitted something this evening, it'll be reviewed before you make a decision.
We've reviewed all the letters that have come up.
No, I'm sorry, the people before us, this woman handed in a letter for the
Yeah,
person who had
yeah,
COVID.
we passed it on. I
Oh,
read it
I'm
and we passed it
sorry.
on.
My mistake.
Down the line.
Okay.
Nope, see ya.
And I'm not going to get into an argument, but just in short, I just wanted to say that on October 8th, 10 days prior to this hearing, people moved into the upstairs unit of that house. I spoke to a young woman and I asked her directly, I said, "Are you the new tenant in that house?" And she said, "Yes." So I leave you with that. I mean, that was something that happened, that was firsthand. I spoke directly to someone, so I don't know what was seen today or who's in the house today or what's going on there. But that's one of the things that is a definite discrepancy. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Name and address for the record, sir, please.
Sure. Stephen Rizzo, 77 Craig Road, Islip Terrace. And with, first, sure, Rizzo. I'd like to confirm that you received a letter from me.
Yep.
Great. And with regard to the tenants and who's going to be coming in, et cetera, as Terry mentioned a few days back or a week or so ago, people did move upstairs. They're living up there now. There's at least a couple up there right now. And today, a young woman with 2 children arrived in the afternoon and went upstairs. So there are people living up there right now. And as far as who's coming in, could you let us know who's proposed to be coming in?
Well, we don't, so family use only means owner occupied and
Right.
someone of familial descent is living with them. And there's some criteria they have to meet in order for that to happen. Age, medical, the applicant has medical criteria here. I believe it's the dad that's relocating and living with them,
Okay.
according to them.
All right. Well, in any event, it's completely incorrect that there's nobody up there right now, and there have been tenants there for about 10 days.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Does anyone else wish to be heard in this application? Good evening, sir. Just name and address for the record, please.
How you doing? My name is Dave Wisserman. I'm at 58 Craig Road, Islip Terrace.
You're gonna have to spell it.
I'm sorry? Wissemann. You're welcome. I have to say, for the taxes we pay in Islip, you guys need a better PA system. I can't hear shit back there.
I try and fight for that every week. I'm gonna get this. That's all I got.
Okay. I really didn't hear what Kevin said, so I don't want to go into, anything that he already might have touched subject on. I just want to reiterate my opposition to the rezone and also my opposition to the shed that's there now. We've had neighbors in our neighborhood that have had to literally cut their sheds in half to get them to the proper boundary lines that the town required and so forth. And that's without neighbors complaining about it. So if their neighbors are complaining about a shed that's too close to their property lines, like Steve is, I think that should be recognized by the town as, something that needs to be addressed.
So appreciate that. Just to inform you, the shed is 3 feet instead of 4 feet. We see that weekly when they come up in front, and they've been passed. If not, if it was too large and too close, that'd be a different story. But what's in front of us is only 3 foot instead of 4 feet for shed.
And the length, the size of the shed and everything else.
That
the house.
it must meet the code because it's not in front of us. We don't write this. They get denied from the zoning department. It comes over to us.
My opposition is noted. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great night. Does anyone else wish to be heard in this application? Roxanne? So there's not one, there's multiple that are stating the same
Yes.
story.
So I'll address the concerns that were noted just now. As far as the commercial vehicle, it was noted as a complaint, and they did confirm that it was removed. The caravan that was in disrepair, there was an issue with the insurance. It was rectified, and that was towed away today while I was there. The tenant that was causing, I'd say, all of these issues that they're complaining about has moved out, which they have also confirmed. He has family coming in. So the father is the one that is on the application. But with him comes, there's a woman named Jennifer, who's the person that they spoke to. She's going to be living with the dad, and I believe it's his
Ms. Trell, this all
sister-in-law.
sounds well and good. What do we do? I counted, there are 18 people.
Well,
Wait,
I
wait,
would,
well, let me just finish. There are 18 people that they've told us that they're sparing us. Only 4 or 5 representatives have said basically, these are not good neighbors. Do we just say, okay, well, we turn the page and we forget about that because your client told you he's going to be a wonderful neighbor? How do we disabuse that these people had to live because of him? With all of the complaints, how do we pretend we didn't hear that? How do we unring that bell? Because, well, now we want to change.
I think that he did have a very disruptive tenant at the property.
That sounds
and-
way more than,
and-
let's not,
But the person is gone.
no, let's not pretend this was a bad tenant who had a bad hair day. This sounds like it's endless, 10 people. Also, I'm looking at the photographs. I think you have, your client has more of a problem. I see 2 front entrances.
Yes, that is,
Well, we can't,
that's-
how can we approve
it's not,
that?
it's not before the board because it's
Yeah, but
being, it's,
what are we supposed to do? Pretend we didn't see it?
no, it has to be removed. The building inspector won't pass the inspection until that is removed.
Okay, I don't like this application. I'm only speaking for myself. I don't think he was a good neighbor and that he deserves any consideration from us now, maybe in the future. Thank you.
Well, hold up. There's no clapping yet. Please, we have to be respectful of everyone's opinion here. Anything else you'd like to state, Ms. Trell?
I would like to point out that most of the issues that the neighbors had a concern with, they themselves said have been rectified and that he's been working on cleaning up the property. So I understand that what was there was very disruptive to the community. I appreciate their concerns. I would not want it in my neighborhood either. However, that person is now not there. He's now cleaning up his property. He's mowing his lawn. He got rid of the vehicles, and he has a building permit issued for the conversions. He has a building permit now for the shed. So he's trying to come into compliance, and he's trying to clean everything up. And they themselves have stated that he has cleaned up a lot of their complaints. So he's working towards being a better neighbor. And he meets the criteria for what he's asking.
And I think, I'm just going to speak for myself. I think we have to reserve and really look through this and look over the letters and I want to check some of the complaints in the town on it. But does anyone else wish to be heard in this application? You guys can reserve.
Can I just add one last thing? Being that we're reserved, if the board would like, we can allow a code enforcement and/or a building inspection to take place just to also show that everything's coming into compliance.
Sure. I think another gentleman back there raised their hand to be heard. And come down to, I'm sorry, I didn't see, I apologize. Be careful coming down. Just name and address for the record, please.
My name is Lori Agosti, Agosti, 61 Craig Road.
You're gonna have to pull that microphone down and speak into it.
Lori Agosti, 61 Craig Road.
Thank you.
In response to your pictures that have two front entrances, right around the garage, there's another entrance into that house.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Sir, would you like to be heard? 1 second, Roxanne, we'll let you speak once again. Just name and address for the record, please.
Actually, I need this closer. Is this okay? Good evening. My name is Joseph Felder, 67 Craig Road, Islip Terrace, New York. It's Felder. So, my neighbors know me pretty well. I've been a volunteer firefighter for the last 14 years in the town of Islip. And, you know, anybody could say that we're cleaning up the act. I get that, kind of respect that, but the amount of deadly fires that I responded to in the town of Islip because they cleaned up their act, but there were single room occupancies is just sickening. And this is literally a spit image. I had a neighbor come over to me on Plum Street after a fire and said, oh, they just got approved for this building, but meanwhile, they're renting out single room occupancies. What happened last year with the police chase is exactly the same of a single room occupancy. There are multiple cars. We've all said it. That shed is not 144 square feet either. It's 21 by 12 feet. Let's be real. Let's call it for a spade a spade. It's more than what's allowed in the town of Islip.
I'm not saying it's not. I'm just
Yeah.
saying that it's not in front of us today. So
Yeah, I understand that, but I'm just
we don't write.
trying to like gear that too. And it's poured on a slab. I watched them pour the slab. I've been living there for my whole life. And it's something that's just not, you know, it's not kosher. And, you know, parents always said, if it ain't good in the eyes, what good is it going to be behind closed doors? So just thank you very much, guys. And thank you for
Appreciate it. Thank you for your service. Does anyone else wish to be heard? Just name and address for the record. You can pull that microphone down to you.
Joyce Felder, 67 Craig Road, Islip Terrace. And I really just want to address George.
Oh, you got to address us though. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
We're sorry.
We have to address us though, ma'am.
We're sorry that this happened. It's been 2 years of going through this, like we said, but it's hard to trust him now. We don't know how to trust. When trust is broken, it's hard to get that back, and you have to prove yourself. And we want to welcome you to Craig Road, and you know, we love waving to your kids and your wife when they're walking the dog. We do that, George. And we're sorry you're going through this. We really, truly are. But you have to understand us on Craig Road and how we've lived for the past 20-something years. And this is just unacceptable for us. So, but we're willing to give you a chance to trust you, but you have to prove it. You have to prove it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Charlotte, anything further?
Yes, I just wanted to address the side entrance.
What do you say about the trust issue?
I actually have something for that. There was one time that I was before the board where we had a neighbor issue like this. And instead of approving the apartment for 3 years, we did a conditional approval for 6 months. And if during that 6 months, the issues continue to stay rectified, the homeowner continues to stay compliant, clean up the property, it is proven that it is family living there and there are no other issues, then at the next hearing, he would be eligible for the 3-year apartment. Maybe we can do something like that. In this case, considering that everyone is agreeing that he is trying to come into compliance, we're acknowledging what happened in the past. We're acknowledging that we don't want that to continue and we want to do better. And I think this way it kind of allows him to do better and to be held accountable that if he doesn't, then he's not going to get that apartment for 3 years. It could be denied and he would lose it.
If I were to vote for something like that, I would want 2 hearings of 6 months because the next 6 months are gonna be winter. And people stay inside, problems tend to hibernate. But I'm not saying I would vote on
I think
that.
that's something that we have to talk about. I think I believe we're gonna make a vote to reserve this decision. I didn't mean to cut Mr. Rex off. I'm gonna let him speak in 1 second.
No, you said just what I was going to say.
Yeah, and that's a compromise that we're gonna definitely discuss as a board on that.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Anyone further? One more? Come on down. Name and address for the record, sir?
Stephen Rizzo, RIZZO, 77 Craig Road. And just with regard to the show of good faith, I just want to confirm that everyone up on the board understands there's 5, at least I've seen at least 5 new tenants up there within the last 10 days. And this is where the supposedly horror show tenant moved out. There are new people in there already. And
Are they family members? Do you know that?
no idea at all. Doesn't look, I can't speak to that, no.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does the board have any further questions? Mr. Nicole, I'll take a motion.
Motion to reserve decision.
All in favor?
Aye.
We have 62 days to render a decision. We're going to discuss it as a board, and a decision will be rendered. All have a great night. Thank you. No.
Another opening, another show.
Need to switch careers.
Oh, I'm reading. I'm sorry. I'm waiting. I'm like, why doesn't she speak already? Okay. Calendar 749-22, Lawrence Dominion. Permission to leave carport, 10 by 23, on side property line not having required setback of 14 feet, and driveway on side property line not having required setback of 4 feet, Residence B District. This is much easier application.
We hope so. Roxanne Trella, Dynamic Expediting Services with offices at 1040 Terry Road, Ronkonkoma, New York. We are here for the driveway, having a side yard of 3 feet, which actually, it's on the property line instead of 4 feet, I'm sorry. And we're also here for a carport. So the carport is 10 by 23. It is on the property line. It is not enclosed. As far as precedent, we were only able to locate a rear roof over patio that was similar in nature, that was given a side yard of 6 feet instead of the 14. But I did take a drive down the neighborhood today just to see if there was anything else that we had missed. And what I noticed was on his actual road, it's a very short, narrow road and 4 houses right next to him. I do have the addresses. They're almost like on top of each other, the houses themselves. So the property widths themselves are very narrow. The houses are like right up to each other. So this carport is within character and nature of the neighborhood. And what he uses it for is, I'm not a car enthusiast, so I couldn't tell you what kind it was that I saw today, but he has old special cars. He has a 2-car garage that he keeps 2 in, and he keeps the 3rd one in this carport. So it is strictly used for storage to keep the car safe from the weather elements. And he has no intention on ever enclosing it or turning it into living space or anything like that.
Ms. Trella, how do we grant this when it's right to the property line? It's not set back 5 feet, 6 feet. It's right to the property line. Doesn't that just eviscerate the code?
That's exactly why I took a drive by to see what was in the neighborhood, if this was like a one-off and just completely a terrible application, or what the neighborhood
But
was
we have no
like.
precedent that we granted.
So I did try and foil the CO so we could show that the houses are literally up to the property line themselves. There are no side yard setbacks on some of these houses. I'm sure we could probably pull up an aerial of it. It's on 2nd Street itself. There's 4 houses, and then there is 1 house that has a breezeway and a detached garage right up to the property
Well,
line.
if
That's
we
the
have
only
no-
different one.
If we have no precedent, and you say, which is an argument, that it's notwithstanding that, it's in the nature of the neighborhood. Shouldn't we have some sort of documentary evidence in front of us? At a 500-foot radius, you can tell us there are, out of 82 homes, there are 81 and a half that have the same. I mean, we need that in front of us rather than, I did a drive-by and this is kind of what I think I kind of saw. That's not helping us. Wouldn't we need something documentary?
I could provide the CO with the survey that shows the houses up to the property line, but there wouldn't be any documentation as far as a ZBA decision if these houses were constructed this way.
But Ms. Trella, and I'm not trying to, I don't love to spark Mr. Wexler's flame at all, or air his flame at all, but there was a ZBA approval in 1998 for that one-story addition, which is shown as a garage for the 9 feet instead of the 9 feet on the one corner, which so the house with it already had it as the zoning board approval for 9 feet. And then your client built a carport to the property line. So they already came in front of us, well, not us, but this board,
Correct.
for a one-story addition with a side yard of 9 feet, which they granted them for. And then they went and they put a carport to the property line.
You are
So
correct.
so what are we
You are
supposed to do?
correct. I did speak to him about possibility of changing the carport. If you unattach it, I don't know if that's a word, but if you detach it from the house, and he brings down 2 posts, instead of carrying a setback of 14 feet, it changes it to an accessory structure setback, which would need to maintain 4 feet, which I think is more in line with what the board has previously granted, property line instead of 4 feet.
Would that be an accessory structure though? If was
It
the
would
same-
be. I confirmed with zoning before
they
I brought it to the client that those setbacks would be correct.
But your client could never hold a 14-foot setback. The house holds a 10-foot and a 9-foot with a ZBA approval. So that's the issue that I'm having. I love cars. I would love to store cars in my house too, but, we just have a code to uphold. I don't know how we hang our hat on this, even if the neighborhood shows houses up to the property line. Like this gentleman or whoever that owned his home, I don't know if it was actually your client.
Yes, he
back
was
in
the owner at the time.
Yeah, received a zoning board approval for the extension of the garage.
Doesn't that also kind of, to you, smack of disingenuousness? They know their zoning, they know they come in, we gave them a relaxation, they take the relaxation, they put it in their pocket, and then just go build it anyway. What are we to take from that?
So he wasn't ever before the board for the carport. He was for the
Yeah.
attached garage,
Okay,
which
but
he did
knows
build.
that he has to do things, and
He-
there
yes.
are rules and laws in the great town of Islip. So he knows the procedure. And then he just says, okay, now I know the procedure, hang it. What does that mean to us?
I can't speak to what he was thinking 20 years ago
But
when
we
he
have to
put up the
take all of this
carport.
in.
The only thing I could say, like I said, is we have spoken to him about possibly coming up with a compromise. And if the board sees fit, maybe we can reserve decision and I can provide the COs and surveys for all the houses that are up to the property line and the couple of houses that do show a detached garage coming up at the same level of the house and with literally on the property line themselves, so that you could see that this is
Would you like
character
to take
and
an
nature of the
adjournment?
neighborhood. We could do an adjournment
Get
if that
adjourned and
works.
get your information that you would want and come back?
Yeah,
I-
and
I
I'll
don't know
have
what
it
would
drawn
be-
up so that you could see the accessory structure, and I'll bring a copy of that code with me to try and compromise with the variance that he's seeking.
Would you rather an adjournment, or would you rather reserve with submissions? Let me know, and I'll wait.
I'm okay with either.
You'd have to come back with an adjournment. If you're reserving with submissions, you're just going to submit, and then we're going to decide. So what do you want to do?
I guess I'll take an adjournment. I think it's easier if I do an adjournment.
So if we adjourn, you're going to provide us with some sort of documentary proof that other homes are built right up to the property line.
Yes, I do have 7 addresses within this
So
neighborhood,
you're-
so I will make sure to bring with me all of the information.
You're going to go under the theory that notwithstanding there's no precedent, everybody does it, so it must be okay.
I'm going to go with the theory that it's within character and nature of the neighborhood.
All right.
So adjournment, which date now?
I think we might need to put it off till November 29.
That's okay.
Does anyone wish to be heard in this application? Does the board have any further questions? Make a motion to adjourn till November 29th.
Second.
All in favor?
Thank you.
Have a great evening.
Have a good night.
Okay, next up, R. Charles and Cheryl Zigrosa. Permission to leave roofed over porch having front yard of 39.7 feet instead of required 40 feet. Side yard of 14.9 feet instead of required 18 feet. Total side yards of 20.7 feet instead of required 36 feet. And walkway on-side property line not having required setback of 4 feet. Residence AA district. Good evening.
Hi, good evening. How you guys doing tonight?
How are you?
Good, thanks. Good.
Just name and address for the record, please.
I'm Robert Zagrosa. I go by Charlie, my middle name. This is my wife, Cheryl Zagrosa.
How are you tonight?
Very good, thank you.
Good. So you have roofed over porch a little too close. That's real little too close.
Yeah.
Side yard 14.9 instead of required 18. The house holds 14.9? Is that how it was CO'd?
Yes, I believe so. It's off the new survey that we had done, so whatever they got off the new survey is what they put up for us.
Great walkway, not on property line, that's a small walkway.
Right.
Any objection from planning, Deirdre? Does anyone wish to be heard in this application? Does the board have any further questions? Mr. Sullivan, I'll take a motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Application granted.
Thank you all. Have a good night. Thank you.
Next is Lisa Bennett Johnson. Permission to leave pool patio having rear yard of 0.4 feet instead of required 6 feet, resident B district.
Good evening, Dwayne Johnson, my wife Lisa Johnson,
Good evening, how are you? Just address for the record, please.
77 Locust Boulevard, Ronkonkoma, New York.
Great, thank you. You have a pool patio pavers, as the survey says. That's pretty good, right? Survey says. A little bit too close. Just a small part of the property line right there. I feel it's a minute, we'll take a vote. Does anyone wish to be heard in this application? Does the board have any questions? Mr. Sullivan, I'll take a motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Application granted. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Take care.
Next, number 752, 983 Smithtown Avenue LLC. Permission to leave expansion of non-conforming use with two-family dwelling by leaving basement conversion to recreation space, including full bath and egress windows, residence AA district. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Vincent Tremarco. I represent the applicant. I have offices at 1040 West Jericho Turnpike, Smithtown, New York. As the board well knows, this is an existing non-conforming use, which was granted as CEU in 1976. If the board has before it the certificate of occupancy, you can see the history of it, and I won't bore you with it. In 2001, late 2001, the former owner came in and asked to expand the non-conforming use to the extent that they wish to build a sunroom in the rear of the house, which of course would change and did change the footprint. The board was gracious enough, this board was gracious enough to grant it. And we're here today as the new purchasers, the LLC, which members are Caterina and Giuseppe Abranconti. They bought the premises in September, and very precipitously, they started to do work in the basement. Mrs. Aberconti indicated to me that the basement was so bad and dirty and filthy that she just wanted to clean it up. And I guess it got away from her, and they put sheet rock down. They did build a bathroom, and the balance of the basement consists of a recreation area and storage.
So they started a cleanup project and it became a rebuild.
I'm sorry?
It started as a cleanup project and it became a rebuild.
Yes.
Okay. Guess that can happen. You go to clean your room and next thing you know, you're building another bedroom.
Well, I don't think that there's any bedrooms going in there. If you look at the floor plan, Mr. Wexley, you'll see it's wide open.
So I understand, Mr. Tramarko, they finished an existing basement.
Yes.
Okay.
Any objection from planning? Does anyone wish to be heard in this application? Come on up, one at a time, please. Name and address for the record. You can all come together, but you all can't speak at the same time.
Mr. Tramarko, one last question. When did your client purchase the house?
I'm sorry?
When did your client purchase the house?
When did they buy it?
Yes.
September of '21.
Thank you. Name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. Tom Fascino, 1017 Smithtown Avenue, Bohemia, New York. Foschino.
How are you tonight, sir?
Good. So when this house was sold, I spoke to the new owner. They were standing outside, spoke to them about what they were going to do. They said it's illegal too, and they're going to keep it as a two-family house, but they're going to do some nice work to it, which they have. They've done a lot of work to it over the last year. However, one of the first projects that was done was putting in an enormous driveway, which would probably fit at least 10 cars. From there was a lot of work being done. While there was workers there, I struck up conversations, talked to people, and multiple workers told me that they were putting in 4 families in the house. Now, I checked. There was never a variance done, never anything over 2 families. What we're concerned about is that their goal here is to put 4 families in that house. There's every indication of that. All the work that's been done on the basement, the egress windows, the full bathroom, everything tells us that it's going to be an apartment. I'm sure that if they get the permission to do so, it will then be turned into an apartment once they get the CO. We're just trying to prevent there being a 4-family house where there shouldn't be any 4-family houses in Bohemia.
Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Hi.
Good evening.
My name is Suzanne Fascino. That's my husband. I live at 1017 Smithtown Avenue. I'm also a little concerned that the house is listed as an LLC. It's a corporation and it's intended to be a business. That's a little concerning to me, especially since the corporation was applied for the month before the house was sold. So we're setting up a corporation to buy a house to put rental units into. I understand a 2-family house.
It's a legal 2-family home.
Right, exactly. But 2-family house doesn't require all the work that's been done. And when your workers say, oh, it's being really nice inside, there's going to be 4 families living in here. I mean, that's 2 families, great. If you have to do this and you have a business and you're renting, that's one thing. But to shove 4 families into the house, it's pushing it. It's asking a lot of neighbors to trust that once this is granted, it's not going to become another apartment. I mean, they say, oh yeah, we put in an extra basement. I mean, an extra bathroom. Like when I'm cleaning my basement, I don't put in an extra bathroom. You know what I mean? It's a little hard to believe that that's the truth. There's intention here. Your first project is to put in a driveway you can fit 10, 12 cars in. It already was a 2-family house. The driveway that was there for the past, 19 years that I've been there should have been sufficient. Why the extension of the driveway, if not the addition of cars? I think it's very strange that this extremely reputable contractor that was used, GAPSI, is also the owner of the house. Now, these people are well-known. They do phenomenal jobs. How do they know that they shouldn't be applying for a permit before they start putting this stuff into the house? I mean, I don't understand. It defies logic.
Can I interrupt you a second?
Yeah.
We're just kind of addressing it amongst our board members. Maybe we'll have an inspection.
I would appreciate that.
Okay.
But the one thing that really just upsets me is it feels like a case of, like you have one of those mothers that always spoke in soliloquy or Irish proverbs. She always said, it's always better to ask for forgiveness than permission. This way you get away with it. And I feel like that's happening here. I feel like they're backing
Well, that's
into
why we
a
want to
permit.
do an inspection, and then we'll have proof.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
As to the driveway, I'd just like to point out, I know of Mr. Abercrombie's work, and I wouldn't call him a contractor, I'd call him
An artist.
a master artist.
100%.
And building driveways is like his hobby.
Right, I know, and that's the point. He's so well-known. The business is phenomenal. The things on their website are just gorgeous. You have to know that you apply for a permit. If you're that well-known and that, you've been in this business for how many years, you have to know that you put in for a permit before you start putting a bathroom in your basement. It seems like the first thing you do as a reputable person in that industry. Apply for the permit,
Maybe
do
he
the
knows
work.
that same Irish proverb.
That's what I'm thinking, maybe. So,
I thought it was an Italian proverb.
well.
I think everybody claims it as a
I
proverb.
married into my Italian. I come from the Irish proverb.
Okay.
So thank you.
Thank you for your time. Sir, would you like to be heard?
No.
Just name and address for the record, please.
Chris Bucciatelli, 1050 Smithtown Avenue.
You don't have to spell out. She's definitely going to ask you that.
Piscitelli.
Thank you.
I don't want to have to rehash everything they said. It's basically what they've said, but it's the same thing business-wise. And even as this gentleman was saying, it's beyond the renovation of a basement. A pool's been filled in. The whole house has been renovated from top to bottom. I haven't physically been inside, but you can see guys working, lights on, up top, bottom, basement, everything else. And, it's the same thing. Once you saw that driveway go in, is it beautiful? Yeah, it's great work. But does somebody need that for two families? I don't believe so.
But just to make the record clear, and I'm not defending anyone here, but the gentleman owns a legal two-family home.
No,
He's allowed to have two families in the home.
I understand two families, but again, after hearing that from workers, that there's going to be four families living in there, having a full bathroom in the basement is usually not heard of. If it was a private residence from a person that's living there, and that's what they want to do, but this is a rental income property, I'm assuming.
Understood.
Whether he rents to two families, I'm assuming. If
Understood.
you can't make the nut with the two families, maybe you shouldn't have purchased the properties if you got to squeeze four in there to get your money out of it.
You're about the third person said the four families from the worker. Do you have the workers that will?
No, I don't have the work. It's hearsay, but
It's
that's
hearsay.
what I'm saying. But like Suzanne was saying, if it gets granted, are you guys no one's going to go and check on a monthly, 6-month, yearly basis to see what's going on in there. Once it's done,
Understandable.
it's done. And, we don't have permission to go knock on their door, and I'm not going to sit there videoing in, I have a life too.
I just want to make it clear though, even if the basement's not finished and done, he's still allowed to rent the two families and it's illegal.
No, two families is fine. We understand two families, but when it comes down to, if it's three families, even if you got one in the basement, do you know how many full baths are in the home? Can you tell me?
I don't know.
That's why I suggested an inspection.
Special, yeah.
An inspection, on the four-family issue, an inspection will bear it out. The house built for two families or it's built for four. And
Well, how do I get to know how many,
There could potentially be four vehicles.
how do I get to know, not that, I mean, you could put 10 bathrooms in the house if you wanted to, but how do I get to know how many full baths are in the house?
Well, I guess.
Two questions, you know what I'm saying? If there's 4 full bathrooms in the home, I don't know too many people in that size home, even though it's 2-family, that have 4 full
To
bathrooms.
answer your question, it sounds as though we, at least me, would like to see an inspection.
Okay.
A town investigator will perform an inspection and create a writing. We will then file that with the zoning board. You can go to the zoning board and ask to see a copy of that.
Okay.
It's a public document.
Okay.
Notice of existence.
All right, I
You should be
appreciate
more
it.
concerned about kitchens than bathrooms.
Excuse me?
You should be more concerned about kitchens than bathrooms. Two families.
No, I understand, but right now, it's common sense. I'm sure you guys go through this all the time. The kitchen's not there, but once they get the CO for the basement, the kitchen suddenly appears and the bathroom's there. You guys aren't stupid. We're not, we know how, everyone knows how it goes.
Sure.
So
I appreciate your time.
I appreciate it.
Thank you. Mr. Chamarko? Careful getting up.
Well, first of all, as this gentleman said, what he heard was hearsay from, I guess, a worker. Mr. Aberconti owns a company called Gapsy, and what they do is paving. So he tells me, yeah, he paved the driveway with pavers. I guess they were pavers that he had left over, and he wanted to make a beautiful driveway. It is, as the chairman indicated, it's zoned, well, not zoned, but it's a non-conforming two-family. That's what's allowed there. We're not asking for a third apartment or a third use. We're asking that the basement be used for recreation. And you know what? You could always use a third or a fourth bathroom, and I don't think that should be relevant to determine that in the future, my client is going to do something that's illegal.
Well, we're not opining what's going to happen in the future. That's.
I understand.
But we can have an inspection to see what's there in the here and now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And by the way, the plans that are submitted to the town shows the bathrooms as existing right now. I think they were done by Alex Kahn.
As Mr. Nicole said, kitchens usually go to the town.
Okay.
So, okay.
So there's consent for the inspection?
Yes, so we will have an inspection. Yes, you'll consent to that? Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I just wanted to ask one.
Sure, real quick.
Is there, after an inspection, is there any insurance? Is there an assurance you give to the neighbors that say, we've done an inspection, this is a two-family home, you have it in writing that this will not be anything more than a two-family home? I have no problem. I've been living next to the house for 2 years. I mean, I'm sorry,
Yes. we
almost
have
20
the
years.
best contract there is, it's called the town code.
Okay, so then that's our
Follow the
assurance
town
that
code.
nothing nefarious happens after the inspection and say, okay, we got it, we can go in, get the stove, put it in there, and let's make it the other
What
apartment.
people do in the future, we have no control
I wish,
But then
How
what
will we
happens
know?
in the future if it's not being adhered to?
Then somebody files a complaint with the town, and the town, a different department. We don't have any law enforcement or investigatory powers. We're just a humble board.
Yeah.
We'll investigate.
Okay, that's all we're asking.
Yep,
It's
no,
just,
that's fair. You're entitled.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, my client is dying to say something.
sure, it's coming up. Name and address for the record, please.
My name is Giuseppe Brancati, and me and my wife bought the house, and we bought it for our kids. Since it's a two-family house, we knew the gentleman who owned the house before. Yeah, sorry. Giuseppe Brancati. Yeah. Giuseppe Abbrancati. So my wife and I bought the house because we knew the gentleman that owned the house, and it happened to be a two-family house, and we decided to buy. We actually paid more than we really wanted to. And we bought it for a reason, because it was a two-family house, and we want our kids to live there together. They grow upstairs, the boy downstairs. Now, I would like to answer
You got to
that.
just
Yes.
speak to the board, please.
They should live next to us for 20 years. I spent $30,000, a minimum, just to clean the house outside.
So all we want to do is make sure
Yeah.
that you are comply with the town code. That's it.
We didn't change the house shape.
Okay, that's all we want to do is
We
make sure.
manicured the house. I would have left that driveway broken gravel and all over the place if I was gonna rent the house. I
You
bought,
have one of-
and I didn't use pavers. I bought brand new
Sir,
paving
sir,
stones.
Sir, you heard one of the board members say you build gorgeous driveway.
Yeah.
Okay,
I just want,
so-
I was just
so
want,
wait, wait.
because they never came and introduced themselves, so.
Sir, are you going to interrupt me? Do you want to just continue to interrupt me?
No.
What is your goal?
Just explain that there's some of the
Okay, we
concern.
get it. Listen to me.
No problem.
Listen. I think they say ashbet. That's- All you want to do is form an inspection. Mr. Tramarko was a very experienced, I've learned a lot from him over the years. We want to perform an inspection and want to make sure that it's going to comply with the code. That's it. Okay? Easy, easy.
No, I just think it was to answer some of the concern. I never met them. so-
Okay, we get it. Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you.
All right. Does anyone else wish to be heard in this application? Excuse me?
I'd just like to add one.
Come on up, real quick.
So his attorney just stated that with the driveway that he had leftover pavers, and he just did that gigantic driveway. If he had leftover pavers from jobs to do that driveway, he's not very good at his job. So it's just more of a snow job thing, that's all. So
All right. No, it's okay.
that's
It's
not
okay.
the thing.
It's all
So
right.
it's not amount, I understand you could build it, you want to pave the whole property, go ahead. I
No, you
understand.
can't. You violate.
Well, whatever, within the code.
We want to
We're
investigate.
gonna
Okay.
investigate it and perform an inspection. All right?
We have a new date, Mr. Chairman?
There's not gonna be a date. We're gonna reserve decision, I believe, with, waiting for the inspection
Okay.
come through, and then,
That's fine.
you'll have a decision in the mail.
Mary,
you.
would you send Mr. Tramarko a copy of the investigatory or the
Oh,
investigative
they'll have to
report?
organize the inspection. They have to let somebody in.
Okay, you'll have to organize it, and then you'll get a copy of it.
Okay, that's fine. Thank
You'll have
you.
to contact and inform the inspection, correct?
Contact me or, yeah, it'd be better if you contact me.
Your
Well-
client's gonna have to get the inspection done.
Right,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
through his
Through
counsel.
his
They'll be
counsel.
there.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I'll make a motion to reserve decision.
Second.
All in favor? Have a great night, all.
One night I want a cup of coffee.
I know, I want. All right, ready to read this next one?
Okay, I'm sorry.
Do you want to enter? Did you, wait.
Edwin Santiago and Narita Perez.
Hold on one second, though. I apologize.
Did you want to entertain the withdrawal request? It's for 6:30. It's up to you. They're all leaving.
Oh, yeah, then we should.
It makes it worse.
Okay, what number is that?
We're gonna jump ahead to, application 544-22 real quick.
Okay, 54-22 real quick, and it's Real Estate Plaza, Inc. Permission to leave two-story dwelling having floor area ratio of 25.5% and erect second-story addition resulting in floor area ratio of 26.1% instead of permitted 25%. To leave 6-foot fence with masonry columns having front yard of 9.6 feet instead of required 15 feet. Raised pool patio having side yard of 5 feet instead of required 10 feet. Pool patio having side yard of 5 feet instead of required 6 feet. Shed having side yard of 2 feet instead of required 4 feet. Rear yard landscaping of 35% instead of required 40%. And to install decorative water feature in front yard when only permitted in rear yard, exceeding the maximum height of 5 feet and not surrounded by a permanent durable barrier. Residence AA District, West Side.
Good evening, Ms. Nicole. How are you?
Good evening, Andrea Dina Kohler, 200 Railroad Avenue, Salem, New York. Members of the board, Mr. Chairman, were recently retained on October 13th. After reviewing the survey and the discrepancies found in the survey, I've emailed and faxed letters withdrawing the application, requesting permission to withdraw the application. Ms. Pissarro said, please come this evening, request permission to withdraw. I put the neighbor's attorney on notice. I sent an email to Elizabeth M. Harrington. Did not hear a response from her, but I tried to be as courteous as I could. There are discrepancies in the survey. The survey doesn't match the meets and bounds description in the deed. There are uplands that we're not sure whether or not they were considered in the FAR calculation, which is part of the application. And there is also a discrepancy on the height of a platform that may change the significance of the side yard variance. So for these reasons, I respectfully request permission to withdraw the application this time and refile.
Great.
Pardon me?
Does anyone wish to be heard in this application? Just to let you know, this is being requested to be withdrawn. Anyone wish to be heard? Come on down.
Mr. Chairman, I am not presenting testimony, and I don't know whether or not this is going to be considered testimony on the application.
Well, let's let them come forward. And if you'll, I'm just.
Good evening. I'm Elizabeth Harrington. I am counsel for Suzanne and Mark Boyd, the neighbors, 369 Montauk Highway, East Merches, 11940. Good evening.
How are you tonight?
Ms. Harrington, if you would just limit your comments to the instant application on whether or not we should permit applicant to withdraw. That's it, not the overall application, just on that limited basis.
I'll try. So the application, my clients are opposed to the application because this has been going on for 6 years. For 6 years with constant and chronic stop work orders and then complete disregard for all of the ordinances. And now in the 11th hour after filing in April, suddenly they need a new survey. Wouldn't they have had a survey if it's 6 years of construction that they've gone through?
But
There's no real reason given.
But I understand that, but we have an attorney who's new to the case and says that she discovered issues that need to be addressed. It's not going to be a 1-year application, or it's not going to be 6 months. The applicant needs time to address. I mean, if you were thrust in that capacity as a lawyer, I imagine, I know what I would do is I need an adjournment, a short adjournment, so that I could address these issues. I don't know how we deny at least the application to withdraw the application so that they can address these issues. I don't think it's a prolonging tactic. We're not going to allow it to be.
Well, that's my concern. So
Well, that's a fair concern.
Yeah,
Maybe our chairman will put some sort of.
I agree with what Mr. Wexler said. If this was in the same council or the same design professional was coming back over and over again now asking to withdraw, I would agree with you 100%. But they just received the file. They found some discrepancies, and I think this board would, if you were in that same shoe, I think we'd do the same for you.
And ordinarily, sir, I would agree. I'm just telling you my client's concerns about time. It's over 6 years of a nightmare.
But
So,
it's not 6 years with us.
no, it's not. Well, that's the problem, though. It's forgiveness, 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 forgiveness. It's
We
not,
haven't forgiven anybody.
it's not one application. It's not one problem. It's fraught with problems, this whole
But we
property.
haven't given forgiveness.
I know. I'm just saying their application seems to be premised on that. So.
Well, you know what,
I
when,
guess-
here's what I'm going to say, and again, you can chime in. I think our chairman's going to give them a tight schedule, and they will then have to make their application, and you can be heard, your clients can be heard, and we'll have what we believe, and the applicant and you, is the correct survey and application before us, rather than us kind of proceed half-baked. So,
Okay.
doesn't that make sense?
Well, again, I'm not denying council, courtesy. I'm just asking that it be somewhat confined.
Sure.
Because my client already submitted a survey to the building department.
Sure.
And did it like years ago. So when the violation started. So if we could just confine it to a short adjournment to get a survey, it shouldn't take that long.
Okay, so we respect that, and we'll move along as quickly as possible.
What we're discussing is, if we would like to, I would appreciate a new application because there's so much inconsistency in the file with the way it's been handled till now. I'd rather close that file and start a nice new one.
Okay.
So I understand that you're saying you'd like that filed as soon as possible.
Correct. And then my client will have to resubmit all of her photos and everything else. So.
Well, we have them. We'll transfer
Will you transfer them
those.
to the new file?
Yeah, well, you don't have to go to work. And why don't we ask Ms. Nicola,
so
how much time do you require to file a new application?
And once it's filed, just to let you know, once it's filed, we'll have it on the next available, time.
If it were up to me, I could do it in a few weeks, but this is up to Mr. Simmons. If he's going to be the new surveyor, I would prefer my client get an entirely new surveyor. But I have to go with his wishes that he has worked with Mr. Simmons in the past. So I had the request out before the 13th to update the survey.
So how much
by
time
the
would you
client.
like? Because your client is somewhat under the gun, and you'll
Understood.
have to move with relative dispatch. Maybe
She's not to disrupt, she's on, the surveyor has to get it done. for her.
I understand I'm under the gun, and I could give you a wish list that I wish this to be in the first week of December, provided I get a survey that makes an iota of sense.
So what do you want? 60 days?
60 days is fine. I would take 60 days on a withdrawal, understanding you're expecting a new variance application to be filed within 60 days.
Yes.
And if something untoward happens and your surveyor goes off to Bermuda for whatever.
I think
you know.
Mr. Simmons can get it done in that.
Yes,
I hope so.
you are very persuasive with,
I am.
I know that. I know that.
I know you do, Mr. Wexler. I appreciate it. Thank you so much, members of the board. Have a good evening.
Does anyone else wish to be heard? I apologize. Ms. Harrington, would you like to be heard? Okay, so
60 days. And we'll transfer everything that you previously submitted. And of course, your clients and you are entitled to submit anything new based on the new application.
Make a motion to withdraw application.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Have a good. Take care.
Okay, we're going back to 753. Edwin Santiago and Naridia Perez. Permission to leave in-ground pool having rear yard of 8.9 feet instead of required 14 feet. And pool patio having rear yard of 4 feet instead of required 6 feet. Residential A district. State your names for the record, please.
Nareda Perez and my husband, Edwin Santiago. Good evening.
Hi, would you speak a little louder,
Oh.
please? You can yell at us, we're used to it.
Good evening. Nareda Perez and Edwin Santiago. We purchased the property about 4 months ago. The pool was in place already. We bought the house in goodwill and good faith that it was in compliance. We didn't realize that it wasn't until we were about to go into closing when we realized that the permits were for a vinyl as opposed to the gunite. When they went to do, the previous owner went to do the paperwork for the submission for the permit for changing from vinyl to a gunite.
I don't know if that's the issue. I think the issue is the 8.9 feet.
Right, when they did the
However,
inspection.
whether it's vinyl or whether it's gunite or whatever. However, the 8.9 feet only appears to be in one bumped out area.
That is correct.
The rest seems to comply.
Yes.
We've seen these before, and speaking for myself, it doesn't appear problematic to me.
Okay.
Does anybody wish to be heard on this application? Okay, who is this? Mr. Sullivan? All in favor? Aye. Motion is carried, or motion is granted. Good
Thank you
luck.
so much. Have a good evening.
Yes. I yield to our chairman.
Just a read.
Oh, I'm still reading, I'm sorry. Okay, 75422, John Fiegelstaller and Gabriella Sid, permission to erect second floor addition, 21.3 by 23.2, leaving front yard of 45.3 feet instead of required 50 feet, side yard of 14.9 feet instead of required 25 feet, total side yards of 31 feet instead of required 60 feet, floor area ratio of 25.4 instead of required 25%. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Nicholas Pfluger, spelled Pfluger, of Bolo Pfluger Architects. We're at 85 East Main Street, Bay Shore, New York, 11706.
How are you tonight?
Good. How you doing? We're here tonight, as you just said, to erect a second floor addition, leaving a front yard of 45.3 feet, side yard of 14.9, total side yard of 31 feet, and an FAR of 25.4%. The new second floor addition is going to align with the existing first floor on the front, rear, and side yards. So none of the setbacks are decreasing from what currently exists to the existing structure as of now. There does seem to be a front yard precedent of 41.8 feet and 40.9 feet, and also a side yard precedence for an existing structure of 12.9 feet. But
Two
we,
floor?
that information I do not have. I just have that it was to an existing structure. But we do feel that the application will not have any negative effect on the property as it's aligning with the existing structure and not going any closer to the property lines that currently exist.
Great. Any objection, Deirdre, from planning? Does anyone wish to be heard in this application? Does the board have any questions? Mr. Sullivan, I'll take a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Application granted. Have a
Good
great
night.
night.
Thank you.
This is killing me here right now. This is for me. Go ahead, Ms. We're ready.
Oh, I'm sorry. 7:55. I haven't read in a long time. Calendars, agendas. Miguel and Criselda Cardoza. Permission to establish accessory apartment pursuant to Islip Town Code, Section 68-602, Residential A District.
Good evening.
Good evening, Board. Maria Hickey, Victory Expediting, 606 Johnson Avenue, Suite 25, Bohemia, New York, 11716.
How are you tonight?
I'm fine, thank you. So I'm just here to ask for permission to establish the accessory apartment.
800 square feet, driveway complies.
Yes,
Everything else seems to be in order.
yes.
Does anyone wish to be heard in this application? Does the board have any questions? Mr. Wex, I'll take a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll make a motion that we grant the application for a period of 3 years.
All in favor?
Aye.
Application granted.
Thank you so much. Have a nice evening.
You too. Take care.
I don't have to remind it, I'm reading. Miguel, I read that. William and Elizabeth McGuire. Permission to install in-ground pool leaving side yard of 9.6 feet instead of required 14 feet each, and pool patio having, leaving side yard of 3.5 feet instead of required 6 feet each, residential A district.
Good evening.
Good evening. William McGuire, Maguire, 88 Chatham Drive, Oakdale, New York, 11769.
How are you tonight?
I'm fine. How are you guys doing?
So you have a somewhat of an odd shaped property.
Yeah, that is a Town of Islip recharge basin that cuts into my backyard.
Just going to say
leaving-
that.
Yeah.
The one side, you're butting up to a recharge basin for the town of Islip. So
And the back side of that property is an apartment complex.
does anyone wish to be heard in this application? Does the board have any further questions? Mr. Sullivan, I'll take a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Application granted.
Have a great evening. Thank you very much.
Write all that in there, right? Make sure it's- Yeah.
Miriam Bigzat. Permission to leave gazebo 14 by 8 by 22.5, having rear yard of 3 feet instead of required 4 feet. Patio on rear property line and having side yard of 1 foot, not having required setback of 4 feet each. Awning having rear yard of 19 feet instead of required 25 feet. Driveway having side yard of 1.3 feet instead of required 4 feet. And 6-foot fence having front yard of 0.8 feet instead of required 10 feet.
Good evening. Shah Bigzat, Bigzat. Yeah,
How are you tonight?
good, thank you.
Sorry, I'm just looking at your survey. Good evening, sir. You're seeking permission for a gazebo, rear yard at 3 instead of 4, patio on rear property 1 instead of 4. Awning of 19 instead of required 25. Where is that awning? Yeah, roofed over right here.
Is it the RO?
Yeah, roofed over. 19 instead of 25. Driveway 1.3 instead of 4. 6-foot fence, you comply. 11,250 is the lot area that you're allowed to have the fence on the property line now. You're 11,263. We see up to a little over 12,000 as a board, just to give a little flexibility. So I think you're in on that with the fence. Any objection, Deirdre, from planning this application? Roofed over patio, never to be enclosed, the awning in the back?
No, we're never going to close it.
Never to enclose it, right?
No, no.
Okay, never to be enclosed. Does anyone wish to be heard in this application? Does the board have any questions? Mr. Sullivan, I'll take a motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Have a great night.
Thank you. Good night.
Lori Sicutella. Did I say it right? Wow. I butcher all names. Permission to leave second story addition, 12.2 by 22.2, having front yard of 20 feet instead of required 30 feet. Second front yard of 8 feet instead of required 22 feet, and floor area ratio of 30.7 instead of required 25%. Residential A district.
Good evening.
Hi,
Name
Lori
and address.
Cicatella, 46 Middlesex Avenue, Oakdale, New York.
How are you tonight?
11769.
So you have a second story that in there? Did you buy the house like that, or you put it up without it?
I purchased the house from my father, who is standing with me, and am now applying for a compliance report, and this came up with one of the issues that I'd like to get approved tonight.
Sure. I believe the house holds 20, not 30 anyway, right? The main structure?
I'm sorry?
The main structure of the house held 20 foot, not 30?
Correct. It was built amongst an existing structure and not any more than that. Amongst the footprint of the existing structure. And I want to also add that, I don't know if there's any question about the front of the property, but they did recently widen my street, and from the aesthetics of the front, it does look like it's a lot closer than it used to be 20 years, 10 years ago. That was, I think, 5 years ago that they widened the street.
Okay. That's because you have a corner there, right? Yeah.
How did the house get built at 20 feet instead of required 30 feet?
It was a CO. I actually applied for what do you guys call it when you apply for a copy of something? I forgot the word. I paid 25 cents for a copy of the original CO when it was approved back in 72.
But how was it? There is a CO?
Yeah, it's on file with you guys. I just never received it in the mail.
CO.
I don't know if you guys have a record of me paying 25 cents.
Yeah, I have the CO right here. Yep.
So it was, the back end. I don't know if you could see it from here, but the back end on the right, it does look like it is very close to the property line because I have a diagonal. However, with the CO was approved back then to have that extra bedroom. It wasn't an extra bedroom, it was a 3-bedroom ranch.
Yep. Any objection from planning, Deirdre?
Yes, thank you,
Yeah.
yes.
We will note that. Does anyone wish to be heard in this application? Does the board have any questions? Mr. Sullivan, I'll take a motion.
Thank you.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
This case is granted.
Thank you, guys.
Good
Have a good night. Yankees won, by the way.
I heard that, yeah. Good news.
Oh, they did?
They won, yep.
759 Matthew Wall, permission to leave in-ground pool with attached hot tub, having side yard of 12 feet and rear yard of 10.2 feet instead of required 14 feet, and pool patio having rear yard of 5 feet instead of required 6 feet, residential A district.
Matthew Wall, 35 Teller Drive, Isom Terrace, WAHL.
How are you tonight?
Good, how are you?
Good. So you put the pool in with that benefit of a permit, or you purchased the house?
No, we had the permit.
You had a permit, and it was just a little too close?
The spillover spa was actually, we had a variance for a pool.
Oh,
And
yeah, I signed it. Sorry about that. Yeah. I'm sorry about that. Keep going, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to
So we had a
interrupt
variance for the pool, and I didn't realize that my pool contract, it didn't have the spillover spa on the original variance. for the original permit.
I'm sorry, what is a spillover spot?
It's an attached spa.
It's a hot tub.
Oh, a spillover spa.
Gotcha. I have no objection.
Yeah.
Does anyone wish to be heard in this application? Board, have any questions? Mr. Wex, I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we grant the application.
All in favor?
What's a pool without a spillover?
Yes.
Okay. Number 760, Byron Gareta Garcia and Marlene Gareta Garcia. Permission to use dwelling for two-family, family use only pursuant to Islip Town Code Section 68-419.1 Residential A District.
Anyone here on application 760-22? Second call.
Okay, number 761, Michael J. and Joanna Smith. Permission to erect two-story addition, 18.3 by 30.4, leaving height of 30 feet instead of required 28 feet, to reduce roofed-over patio attached to detached garage, leaving rear yard of 2.5 instead of required 10 feet, leaving floor area ratio of 32.9 instead of required 25%, and to leave driveway having side yard of 1 foot instead of required 4 feet, residential B district.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. Chris Hang, 93 Main Street, West Sable, 11796. We are proposing a two-story structure on the rear of this existing two-story residence. I'd like to point out to the board that the garage is about 6.3% of the overall proposed FAR. So we're at 32.9%. Without the garage, we would be at 26.6%.
I'm sorry, you deleting the garage? or-
No, I just would like to note that in the presentation, that the garage is over the square footage. That, it's not, it can never be livable space.
Okay.
Okay. So you're stating for the record that 32.9 minus the 6,
0.3% would bring us down to 26.6%.
but the code states that the garage has to be.
That's correct.
Good.
Do you have any precedent for 32.9?
No, we don't. We do not.
What do you have precedent for?
I talked to Deidre, and we're around 30% for precedence.
30% would be great.
Okay. All right. So what I'd like to do is actually take the 30%, and then I'm going to ask the client to modify the garage. So the rear portion of the garage, the 11.8 by 9.2, if we take that part of the garage out, let me just double check my math.
However you get to 30%, Mr. Hang, is fine with us.
Okay. All right. So I would like to take the 30% for the decision.
All right, so that's fine with that. Height of 30 feet instead of 28.
That's existing.
You're reducing the roof over detached garage 2.5 feet, floor area ratio 1 driveway 1 instead of 4. Any other objection to that, Deidre, from planning or no?
I'm sorry, do we have any precedent for the 2.5 feet instead of required 10 feet on the detached garage?
So if you remove the roofed-over concrete patio, which is attached to the addition to the back of the garage, that's the part you're modifying, right?
No, we would have to remove the covered patio and the other part as well.
Right.
To bring it
correct.
under.
I think we said that differently, but the
Yeah.
same thing.
Yep.
So you're removing the 11.6 by 9.2 in the rear
Yep,
and the roofed-over concrete patio.
yep. And that would bring us under 500 square
It
feet.
brings you very close,
496.
495.55, right,
Yep.
correct. Then the required side yard will only be 4 feet.
4 feet.
That's correct.
So you reduce the FAR substantially, and the required side yard changes as well.
That's correct.
So you could amend the call if you like,
We need to.
because he may still need permission to, do you think he'll still need permission to leave the original garage?
Yes, I
Yeah.
will still need permission on that because the setback does not, we're still not at the 4 feet.
Yeah. We're going to amend the call and meeting to withdraw The roof over patio attached, right, that part?
The roof over patio and the rear one-story addition onto the garage. So the roof over patio and the 11.8 by 9.2 extension on the garage. So it's
It's
basically.
not- Yeah,
the-
but that's not in the call of the meeting, so what do we?
Okay, so you would like to remove that part of the request that seeks to reduce the roofed-over patio attached to the detached garage,
Yep.
and I believe amended to leave modified detached garage, leaving rear yard of 2.5 feet instead of required 4 feet. And the call would also be amended to seek an FAR not to exceed 30%.
That's correct. I would like to point out, but I don't know if, I'm looking at the structure, the side yard setback
Oh, you're right.
is actually at 0.8. So the call of the
You could
hearing,
probably remove everything. I don't, I'm assuming that the building department will consider that that very small side yard exists already, or else they would have written it.
that's correct.
Okay.
I just wanted to point that out to the
Are we
board.
amending that to Mary?
I think-
I'm trying to
I think
make
now we're
it-
going to remove all reference to the garage entirely.
I'm trying to make the application very easy.
I am so lost right now, I gotta be honest with you.
Yeah, I don't know if you should make a motion on this.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, guys. We're basically trying to maintain the garage at square footage that's under 500 square feet. Once it goes under 500 square feet, it's a 4 yards, 4.
Can I make a suggestion? You're confusing us all. Would you like to second call this? You can.
No, we're good, we got it.
I think we're like 80% of the way
Yeah,
there.
we got it.
Yeah, can I just,
Go ahead.
I'd like to try to clarify before we go that route.
Sure.
So once it's under 500 square feet, then the side yard setback is 4 feet.
Yep.
And the FAR is not included in the overall FAR. So, you know, the 30% that you're granting us would suffice on that, and
Yeah, not to exceed 30%.
that's correct.
And we also have to put in the call regarding the 4-foot side yard instead of, amended from the 4-foot instead of the 10, correct?
The 4-foot was going to be a reference to a rear yard, which isn't necessary. Because
Yeah,
you're
now
gonna
that's
hold
not
over-
necessary.
It's going to hold over 10 feet. back
That's
there.
correct.
And it doesn't appear that the building department was concerned about the side yard.
That's correct.
So you can withdraw any reference to the garage, or
The
you can
garage.
deny that portion of the application.
That's correct.
I'd say we should not. Make amendment to withdraw any reference to the garage.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now let's go from there. Does anyone wish to be heard in this application? Does the board have any further questions? You want to call it or no? Mr. Nicoli, I'll take a motion.
Motion to grant the application as amended.
Second. That's FAR not to exceed 30.
FAR not to exceed 30%.
Thank you. I
All in
appreciate
favor?
it.
Aye.
Why wouldn't that have been in the amendment?
It was.
There you go.
Yeah,
She yelled at me.
Mary yells.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Have a good night.
Okay,
Sorry for the
then.
confusion.
Brian and Kelly Schreifer. Permission to erect decking with outdoor shower, leaving side yard of 1.9 feet instead of required 5 feet, and rear yard of 12.4 feet instead of required 15 feet, residence BAA district.
Good evening. Glenn Graham with Graham Associates, 256 Orinoco Drive, Brightwaters, New York. This application is just to extend a 12-inch high deck in the rear yard in 2 spots. And we do have precedent for 2 properties within 500 feet of the subject parcel, down to actually 0-foot setback, and the other one's at 1.85.
Great. Deidre, that's all, no objection, Deidre, from planning? Does anyone wish to be heard in this application? Does the board have any further questions? Mr. Wex, I'll take a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll make a motion to grant the application.
Thank you.
And you've requested an adjournment on the next case, the case of
763-22.
That's correct.
Oh, good. That's long. I didn't want to read it.
76322.
We're asking to come back in the future. There was a hot tub that was omitted from the call that we wanted to add.
Did you send me a new denial today, Glenn?
I didn't get it yet.
Okay.
I don't believe so.
I
I'll
don't know if we're
check.
gonna, I don't know if we're gonna make November 1 then, so it'll be November 15.
No problem. Thank you.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Have a good night, everybody.
Have a great night.
Number 764, Federico Pelez Guerrero, permission to establish accessory apartment pursuant to Islip Town Code, Section 68-602, and to leave concrete pad having side yard of 0.5 feet instead of required 4 feet, residence AA district.
Hello, good evening. My name is Rosani Pelez Williams. I am the daughter of Federico Pelez Guerrero. I'm here to translate.
How are you tonight?
Yes, Rosanny.
How are you tonight?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Seeking permission for an accessory apartment. Apartment's 301 square feet. Driveway can be modified, I'm being told. So it will be modified, right, from engineering? Subject to
Yeah,
engineering.
will we? Mhm.
And concrete pad, side yard of 0.5 instead of 4, it's a very small concrete pad. Seems de minimis. Does anyone wish to be heard in this application? Does the board have any questions? Mr. Nicole, I'll take a motion.
Motion to grant the application for peer reviews.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you
Application
so
granted.
much.
Have a great night.
Have a good night.
Thank
God
you. Good
bless you.
night.
You too.
Now I feel this. Oh, I'm sorry. All night. You think by the last one I'll get it. Juan Jose Rivas and Margarita Rivas. Permission to leave roof over porch having front yard of 23 feet instead of required, permitted encroachment setback of 24 feet. Pavilion not having 20 feet behind front line of dwelling and shed with roof over having side yard of 2 feet instead of required 4 feet, residential A district.
Good evening. My name is Salim Abraham. I reside at 254-10 Francis Lewis Boulevard, Roselle, New York, and Queens. Good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
Hope everybody's okay. Regarding this application is a corner lot. Like you can see, the shape of the lot is a bit irregular. And also the location of the structure is behind a fence, a 6-foot fence at the front yard. As you know, you can see it's 2 front yards. So the shed, it cannot, the structure cannot be seen too much from the street itself. And, you know, I don't see it's a problem with the view from the street for the neighbors around the neighborhood. I do also have pictures also.
Yeah, I see it right here. Deirdre, any objection? Does anyone wish to be heard in this application? Does the board have any questions? Mr. Nicole, I'll take a motion.
Motion to grant the application.
All in favor?
Aye.
Application granted.
Richard Santos Tejeda. No delay there.
No delay there. Yeah.
Permission to leave detached garage 22.2 by 39 having side yard of 8 feet and rear yard of 4.8 feet instead of required 10 feet each, leaving height of 18.1 feet instead of required 14 feet, to leave 1-story addition, 2nd-story addition, and 2-story addition, all having floor area ratio of 32.8% instead of permitted 25%. To leave patios having side and rear yard of 1 foot instead of required 4 feet each, and driveway on side property lines not having required setback of 4 feet each, and front yard occupancy of 65.9% instead of permitted 35%, residential B district.
Once again, my name is Salim Abraham. I reside at 54-10 Francis Lewis Boulevard, Roselle, New York, 11422.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. So this is a bit complex. We have the several situation here regarding the garage and the front yard occupancy. I would like to start with the garage itself. I know on the CO there's approved accessory structure for 300 square feet. It was in 1930. And by measuring the original garage that we have on site was 22 by 26, 572 square feet right now. And the owner extended a little bit more further towards the front yard of the house. And that's increased to a bigger increase to the structure itself. So with the addition of that structure, with the FAR that you have on the house already, that gave the extra 2%, 2.8%. And I know being in front of the board, you always are capped at 30%, but that's the existing structure, fully done. It looks very nice. So
I have to interrupt you a second. I'm not sure I understand where you're going with this. You have a
Go
CO detached structure for 300 square feet. This is much larger than that, correct?
That was extended to 572 square feet.
Say
That was extended to 572 square feet.
Okay.
And also now, they also add another piece to the garage that increase the structure further out. And with that part, that add to the floor area ratio.
So you increased it, you're saying your client increased it to 572 square feet, you're stating?
Yes, and also now, I think they believe the full number is 865 square feet now.
How much?
But, I'm sorry, Mr.
No, I'm
West.
sorry.
On the survey, the shed's almost 858 square feet. The garage,
Yes, correct, 865.
865.
Yes.
So where are you getting 572? You say they increased it
No,
that
no,
much?
what happened is the garage was already increased 2 times. The first part of the garage is two sections of the garage. There's one higher and there's one lower. So that part, that long part, that big part is 572. In the addition, that slower part that is under the 18 feet high for storage area, that one is 285.
But it's all one structure, correct?
Correct.
Am I missing something? It's all one structure.
Correct, but the thing is, I want to make sure that it's not everything at 18 feet. It's a partial.
Okay,
I got
so,
picture.
so when was that 18-foot high addition done?
I have no idea when that was done. That was built.
So the code's 14 feet though
Correct,
now.
yes.
So we don't have any idea of when the 18-foot was done? Was it prior to the code change?
I have no idea. I didn't do research for it.
Would you like to take an adjournment and do some more research on that? Because I think that's going to bear a lot of evidence for you, for your argument, for your client, I believe. If you know when that 18-foot height was constructed. Because the code says 14. You're at 18, even if it's part of it, it's one structure.
Mr. Abraham,
Yes, sir.
to state the painful obvious, the garage is too high and too big. Unless you can get us proof, at least with the height, that it pre-existed the code change, it's not a good look. So would you want, as our chairman said, an adjournment to see if maybe your client can give you photographs, some sort of proof that you can say, listen, this predates the code? Because it's way too big. And also the front yard, it's all paved in. I don't see a blade of grass.
I got 60.
So my suggestion to you, you don't have to take it. Most people don't take my advice.
I do.
Especially clients. Is why don't you take an adjournment, take the time to go back and have that discussion with your client that this is where you believe the board is headed. And these are concessions he may want to make, and also give you time to get some proof for the garage.
Okay. And also at the same time, that will solve the problem. Also, try to find design for the front yard, because I know you guys will not approve the 60 whatever number is.
Right.
40% is the maximum.
We max out at 40% normally,
yes.
unless
And-
there's something to argue.
So you
for.
can have that discussion with your client and let him know.
So I would like to adjourn it to have a better design for next time when we meet.
Excuse me?
I would like to adjourn.
Adjourn?
Yes.
Does anyone wish to be heard in this application? Board have any questions? I'll make a motion to adjourn. So, when do you want to,
Can you be ready to do it by November 29?
Yes, that's fine.
till 11:29? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, sir. See you.
Thank you very much.
Have a good day.
61 Keyland Court Associates LLC. Permission to erect vacuum sphere having height of 60 feet instead of required 18 feet. Industrial 1 District, Iceland.
Good evening to the board. My name is Joseph Clemens of German and Clemens Architecture PC, located at 3275 Veterans Memorial Highway, Ronkonkoma, New York, 11779. CLEMENS.
How are you tonight, sir?
Good, how are you? So I'm the architect representing the Innoviering application for the, I'd say, accessory structure. It's more so a piece of equipment than anything else. Pretty much, Innoviering, it develops technical solutions for the defense, aerospace, and energy markets. I will have Dean Madrukis speak on behalf of their company to kind of more educate you in terms of what the vacuum sphere is for and what its purpose is. And then I can gladly answer any technical questions that arise thereafter.
Before we get educated, education is always a good thing. Do you have any precedent for 61 feet instead of 18?
There is no precedent. There's really, in the area, I mean, I'm sure you have some structures, but I don't know if there's anything illegal. I spoke with Deirdre this morning. It didn't appear that there was anything, but there's also nothing really similar to this.
I know, but why, again, we haven't heard it yet, but why should we be predisposed to grant this when it's so grossly in excess of the code? And how are we going to prevent other people or applicants from building the same thing?
I'd say it's fairly unique to the operation. I can't see anybody else really pointing at it saying, I want that in my rear yard as well. It's specific to the use and their business and for who their customers are. I can't realistically see anybody asking for something similar. Out of all the town of Islip, I don't know if any others exist aside from one, which was constructed in 1986. It's a little further down near the airport, but from my understanding, I don't think it was CO'd. I tried fact finding and seeing exactly where that was. So there is one that literally this is a duplicate of, but again, it was constructed almost 30 plus years ago. I don't know of any open violations on it or anything like that, but I also don't believe it's CO'd. I think it just showed up on a survey.
I'm curious to find out what this vacuum sphere is.
Okay, I'll introduce Dean. He can answer those and kind of explain it a little bit more in depth.
Thank you. Good evening, Board. My name is Dean Madrukis, Modroukas. I'm the site lead, site manager at Innoviering. So we do testing for an area called hypersonics. It's an area where this country has fallen quite behind the Russians and the Chinese in particular. And we've had a significant growth in trying to get hypersonic systems to our Department of Defense.
What is a hypersonic system? Something that goes really fast?
It's something that goes really fast. And so we've set up wind tunnels that actually allow us to test, that allows us to generate air that can go fast so we can test hypersonic systems. And because they fly really high, our wind tunnels need to be evacuated. They need to be at a pressure similar to what exists at altitude, and that's very low pressure. And so what the vacuum system or the vacuum sphere does is it simulates high altitude. There's nothing in the vacuum sphere. It gets evacuated. When it's not evacuated, air is in there. And what we do is we turn on vacuum pumps that pull the air out. We run our test, and our test would exhaust into the vacuum sphere.
What is the dimensions? What is the diameter?
It's 48-foot diameter.
48 foot?
Yes, it's an exact duplicate of the one that sits on 77 Raynor Avenue that was built, designed and built by NASA for an organization that we did come from.
Where is that located?
Raynor Avenue in Ronkonkoma.
Okay. And it's 61 feet high?
It may be 56 feet high. That's the diameter is exactly the same. Its elevation off the ground may change. So we would be roughly the same, 56
So
feet.
if we don't grant this, we're going to slip behind the Russians and the Chinese in defense? Is that where we're headed? All right. Thank you.
Thank you. And I should also mention that the addition of the vacuum sphere does take out all the noise from the test as well. So the idea is you basically evacuate it into a chamber that basically absorbs all the noise.
So what about the exhaust system? Is that loud? Whatever's taking the air out?
There's nothing what's taking the air out of the test is the vacuum system. The vacuum system is the low pressure sink, and the flow goes from high pressure to low pressure. And so all of the test gets pulled into the vacuum sphere. That's the objective
So
of
there's
it.
no like motor running, that it's gonna be super loud that the neighbors hear?
No.
So
No.
I think of it, I'm piggybacking on Mr. Nicoli over here. I'm not that smart, I just sell stuff. I'm thinking like a pancake compressor, you open it, it goes, is that thing releasing air out into
No,
something?
no,
or
it's not releasing air. It gets evacuated, so it's a vacuum. Inside that sphere is, we take all the air out. And what happens is when you run the test, you simulate low pressure, and so all the gas goes into that big vacuum sphere and gets contained in it. And it doesn't even go above atmospheric pressure. It all stays below atmospheric pressure.
So you have another vessel that you suck the air out and it goes into the.
No, you just put a vacuum pump on. It's like, how shall I explain it? It's like, if you have one of those freezer bags that you put food in and you suck all the air out.
That's the process. Does that make noise?
No,
That's the one I was asking.
It's just a vacuum pump. It's
Do
like
you
turning
put
a
something
vacuum pump.
inside here?
No.
So I don't understand it. You suck the air out of this sphere.
Before we run a test, we take all the air out of the sphere, so it's sub-atmospheric, sub-ambient.
Okay, so it would, inside would be as if it was at 80 or 100,000 square feet.
At 100,000 feet.
100,000 feet
Correct,
elevation.
correct.
Okay, now you have the simulation of 100,000 square feet elevation. What do you do inside there?
We don't do anything inside there. All that does is capture the exhaust from our test. So we have a setup in our test lab where we flow air, and the air goes in and around our test article, our model. Okay, so instead of flying it fast, we fly the air fast, and then the air then dumps out and goes into the vacuum sphere and gets collected there.
Why do you have to collect it in the vacuum sphere? Why can't it just go into the atmosphere?
It can, but if you want to fly really high, then it needs to be at vacuum or your test doesn't happen. The physics are defined that you need vacuum to run the test at high altitude.
So is there any danger for it exploding, imploding, falling down?
It's a great question. No, there is not. The site at 77 Raynor, which I ran for a number of years, and I was the deputy site lead there, has been there for almost 40 years. And it's been through, hurricanes and other events, and it's never had
Have
an
you
issue.
been to planning department? I mean, this is an awfully large structure. I mean, it sounds like it's a good thing, but is it the right place when the code says 18 feet?
Well,
Just-
honestly, though, not to drop shit, the building can be 60 feet high.
The building can
If
be-
it was attached to the building, heat tax, the principal, yeah.
Okay, now I got it. I got you.
It could be 60
Yep.
feet
We
high.
prefer not to enclose it because
No.
it's a, yeah.
I just received some pearls of wisdom from our chairman.
Well, I'm not sure it's because of wisdom, I'm just saying that.
No,
it
now
could
I
be
get it.
60 feet high.
If the code allows 60 feet and this is 61, whether it's a building or a sphere, I got
Detached
you.
structure.
Yes.
Are we the first look at this?
I'm sorry?
Has this gone to anyone else? Are we the first look at this? Approval wise?
Approval-wise, yeah, you guys would be the first. We ran it by, we had just general conversations with engineering. They pretty much said that we would have to start here because of the variance requirements. So there were some eyes laid on it. There's another application that's with engineering now, which is slightly different from this for in addition. But realistically, this is the optimal choice to proceed. It's more efficient for their business, and their clientele.
Does it remove the gravity from
Build
there?
an addition to the building, can't build a freestanding.
Can't do it?
I had an idea.
Build a
All right.
freestanding.
So what would be the difference if they built an addition?
Oh, like in
No.
They're contemplating that as well.
Just float around. I don't know.
Yeah.
I thought that would be cool.
You could ask that. Can it be contained within the building? That's a good question.
I'm listening to really the boss here, our clerk, our mere secretary. Could it be contained in a building and meet our code?
That's something I would probably have to look into and see how it would work from an addition wise. I'd have to check the zoning. I'd have to see what the setback requirements are for something.
You understand my query?
If
In
it can
other
be
words,
within a
whether you-
building,
Right.
exactly, then we wouldn't even be here.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So, and if it's the functional equivalent, I don't have a quarrel with it. Deidre, could they build a building around it, or they don't have enough? but let's say they attached it to the main building. Theoretically. All right. Okay, that's another pearl of wisdom, an oyster of wisdom. Quite a pearl. So, okay, I'm good. I have no more questions. I'm okay.
Does anyone wish to be heard in this application? Come on up, sir. Name and address for the record, please.
William Kassam. I live at 75 The Helm, East Islip, New York.
How are you tonight?
Good. Kissam. I am presently a property owner on that block of approximately 100,000+ square feet. Multiple buildings. I own 550 Johnson Avenue, which is within eyesight of that. 41 Keyland, 155 Keyland, 171 and 181 Keyland.
Are those industrial properties?
They're all industrial properties, sir. This is, I think, completely out of character for our community. A few feet is one thing, but this is 60 foot. No matter where I go, this is right next door to my building that I own, within 15 feet of it.
How high is your building?
18 feet. I don't believe there's a structure in that park on Keyland Court that exceeds 20 feet.
But we're learning this as we go along and
Go
maybe
right
it can
ahead.
help us. I'm learning that the code would permit 60 feet in height,
The building, not
the building.
A building, perhaps. I have not seen a building. There's one on the corner of Keyland and Johnson that is I believe it's a bagel facility. That may be 30 feet.
But the
max.
code allows up to 60. So if you wanted to build your building 60 feet high, you wouldn't even need us. So.
But this is an unsightly structure. I have the state of New York in one of my facilities. They're looking out their window. It's an office building. They look out their window and they're going to be looking at this thing to the west.
It's not an industrial area. There is.
It's a light industrial area. I believe that this facility should be in a more of a industrialized area, not a light commercial environment such as we have there.
But it's zoned industrial one, most of the buildings here, correct?
That's correct.
I don't know if the code, and I agree with it, I understand what you're saying, not that I agree with it, but I don't know if the code differentiates light industrial or industrial, it's just industrial. Right, so if, like Mr. Wex said, if you would want to step back your building and raise it 60 feet, how do we tell you no?
And put it inside, well, I can't imagine it. It's 3 times higher than any building on that block.
Building around it.
Well, we're not talking about but that's not our discussion, sir. Our discussion right now.
Equivalent.
Our discussion right now is to give them permission to build a sphere that's 48 feet in diameter by 60 foot tall, free-flowing sphere. Well, they can propose that. That's, I am fully aware of that. That's a subject for another night. I understand. If they want to enclose it, they'd have to go beyond 60 foot. Yeah, but you're not going to go right to the top of it, so.
Let's
By the
say
time you put the steel and everything else, it's 65 feet, 64 feet.
So then, and again, we're just hashing this out.
Yes, sir.
We don't know, I don't know what I'm going to do, but, so then theoretically, there's nowhere they could put this in the town of Islip.
No, I didn't say that.
No, I'm asking, where would they, as long as it's, in other words, they could put it somewhere else, as long
A
as
less
it's not-
intrusive area, yes.
Right.
Well, if they want to enclose it, that's,
But what
then
less?
we could talk about that at another time. But this is not enclosed.
No, you make some good points, but when you say a less intrusive area, we don't have any less intrusive, it's industrial.
We have heavy industrial.
Oh, we have heavy industrial.
Yes, that would be industrial 2 zone.
That's the most onerous use of
Yes.
land.
But this, gotcha.
All right, so this is industrial one, which is less, what is the main distinction? You're allowed to more onerous use of land in industrial two?
Yes,
Outdoor storage is permitted and,
yes.
They're mainly junkyards, aren't they?
They were prohibited at some point, but close.
And my concern also, I understand this is a sphere at this point, but 5 years from now, it could be a pressure tank. Some years ago, there was a pressure tank in Town Islip that exploded. So I'm not saying that that's the case here, but I'm saying, can it be at some future date converted?
But as
The
Mr.
other
Lexer-
point,
as Mr. Lexer would say all the time, he said it once before, we can't opine that it's going to be something down the road. That's not in
Okay.
front of us. We can't.
well, why do they have to build a 20 by 40 compressor room if there's not going to be any noise with the discharge of this air? And that's next to my tenants.
well,
That's
they'd
in the
also
back.
have to meet town code with respect to noise. They couldn't just build it and
Okay.
they still have to meet the code with respect to the use of it.
Mhm.
Are you saying the compressor shed, Mr. Kazan?
Yes, in the back. The rear piece of the property is 20 foot by 40 foot, I believe, for a compressor room. That's a sizable compressor room. Sizable. There has to be noise attached to it. I mean, this is a pretty quiet community. I've had these properties for years. I have good tenants. A structure like this would be intrusive.
What are your tenants? What do they do in those buildings? What
I
types
have
of businesses?
Office use?
I have, I have one office building that is office use, and that's the New York State is in that building. They're going on 21 years in that building. That's on corner of Keyland. Well, just off the corner of Keyland and Johnson.
And what are your other uses?
And the other uses are light industrial, mostly a party rental place. I have a prosthetic company. I have Kinematic there. I have a printing company. Light
So what
industrial
you're
uses.
telling us is you think this belongs more in industrial two?
I do, sir, yes. I think that it's going to deteriorate from my property values. I have a very substantial investment on that property, on that block, and I'm deeply concerned. And I brought it to the attention of some of the other neighbors. They did not show up here, but they equally are concerned. But I'm the one that's coming to speak on my behalf and possibly their behalf, but mostly mine.
It appears you own most of them. You got some letters here signed. There's some letters signed. in
There's 4
objection.
letters signed, sir. There should be 4 letters in your
I'm
file.
saying there's a few from you. You must be the owners of those buildings, and there's a few other also.
That's correct.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
There's some letters of objection here. From
Yes, sir. There should be a total of 4 letters, I believe.
There's a Gibson, 2 Gibsons. Telecamp.
How far are you from the airport?
A solid half a mile, I would guess. I would guess a half a mile.
You worry about noise?
My neighbors are, my,
The tenants.
I don't hear the noise at the airport. I mean, is there noise in there? Listen, it's an industrial park. You hear trucks, you hear vehicles, but you don't hear anybody with a heavy industrial use in that community. I'm just stating that I believe that it's in an inappropriate location for a structure of this size and this intrusive.
Appreciate it.
Mr. Kazam, you told us that there was,
No, the operator told us.
oh, the operator told us that there is an exact replica built by NASA at 77 Rayner. Okay, so how far is 77 Rayner? Is that also in,
Perhaps a mile and a half from me.
okay, is that also industrial one? So the town, I guess it was the zoning board, permitted the exact replica to be built a mile and a half away in industrial one.
I'm not familiar with that facility or that site, sir.
Okay. So could you, maybe when you are finished, you could yield to the applicants?
Be happy to.
Just
I
so we
have a
could
sub-
learn.
I have a substantial investment on that block. And my concern is that my property values will be lowered because of this.
Understood, understood.
We're just trying to get the information out. We don't know what vacuum sphere is either, so we're trying to learn.
This is our.
I
one
fully
op-
understand.
This is our one opportunity to gather all of the evidence. And
I fully
information.
understand.
And we take what everybody said seriously. Could we hear from the applicants?
Thank you, Mr. Kazin. Appreciate it.
Tell us about the exact replica, whomever feels qualified to testify.
And let me just say to Mr. Kasama, we don't want him to feel uncomfortable. I own the property with my partner. There's four of us that own and run the business as well. We own that property. We don't want to see the property values decay.
No. But
for
we
any
get
reason.
it. You want to improve the value of your property. He doesn't want to see his decrease. We see this all day long.
Sure.
But tell us about the 77 Rayner Avenue.
77 Raynor Avenue site, the vacuum sphere was, my recollection, because I started there in 96, was built in 86.
Is it still there?
Yes,
Still operating?
still running and operated by Northrop Grumman, yeah.
Yeah, now, when was building enacted? Oh, wow, I got time, yeah.
And we would, that's going to be an ASME pressure vessel. It could never be, when you say pressure vessel, is designed to handle the vacuum. So it can handle the loads of 14 pounds of pressure on the outside and 0 on the inside. It could never be used or to be used to be pressurized. It can't handle pressures.
My
Just wanna
only
address
question, I get all that. I get it. My only question that I have in my own mind is this something that we should permit? It's industrial 1, or is this something that ought not to be in a more onerous industrial 2, where we have junkyards and unsightly but necessary structures? I don't know this area well enough that if this is light industrial and there's office buildings and is this something that we want to have in that area? I don't know.
We keep saying light industrial.
Industrial 1.
Industrial 1 is industrial 1. There's
Right.
no,
Well, I think light versus
So
1
industrial one
versus 2.
is light industrial
Yeah,
uses.
you can't put a junkyard there, a wrecking, a scrap yard, heavy industrial, metal grinding facilities. That's what we mean by light. I get what you mean. But this is interesting.
I have a question regarding the compressor shed. Do you have any information with noise, decibels? You know, your neighbor was concerned that he's got tenants next to that compressor shed.
Yeah,
And it's a 20 by 40 compressor shed. It's a valid question.
Sure, it is a valid question. So the compressor shed is also where the vacuum pumps would be located. And we would, for all intents and purposes, ensure that we would meet the decibel levels at the property lines consistent with the code. Talk about it?
Wait, just one more question real quick.
Yeah.
Has anyone, maybe this is more for your architect, has there been any discussions with FAA regarding height? I don't know if it's not a flight path
As
or-
far as I'm aware, I believe the Board of Appeals sent it to them. I don't believe they've received any feedback. I personally have not been in contact with anybody.
Which board said it?
I believe this board did.
We sent it to Suffolk County Planning Commission because it's
Okay.
within 1 mile of the
Yeah.
airport, but we didn't send it directly to the airport.
Okay, then no, I haven't had conversations with the airport. Just so you're aware, the Raynor Avenue one is closer to the airport. It's literally almost adjacent to it. In regards to the actual zoning, that one was zoned industrial 1 as well. And it's in much closer proximity to that of residences and things that are probably a little bit more concerning than this one. If you physically look at like an aerial in regards to this property, there's no residences or anything remotely close to it, aside from maybe across the street on the highway. And then in regards to just setbacks of the structure itself, the vacuum sphere, it's approximately 200 feet setback from the front yard, 48 and 40 foot from the side yard, and around 77 feet of the rear yard. So it is kind of centrally located within our property. Of course, the structure is 60 foot high. You probably would still see from the street side, but a portion of it would be blocked from the view of with just our building in itself. And the trees and things of that nature. So,
It'd be interesting, just thinking out loud, for any of us to do a site inspection to see does it lean more toward, that area lean more toward looking like industrial two, or more like light industrial? I know our chairman doesn't like that term, but industrial one. Because to me, that, we don't want to create a totally unsightly structure, but if it's kind of a industrial area and it's unsightly to begin with, I don't mean to offend Mr. Kazam, I just want to know what we're looking at, because I have concerns for both sides, I really do.
Good evening, board. My name is Rafael Barinas. Last name is Barinas. And I guess as far as the 20 by 40 structure for the compressor shed, so there's a couple of things, I guess, there that I would, kind of love to touch on. So one is noise, which was the main concern, right? That was kind of voiced. There's a lot of noise in the area. There's a gentleman across the street, I guess, a business across the street that tests, that runs dynos on engines. That is also very, very loud. The testing that we do is very, very loud. The loudest equipment that we have, outside of obviously when we're running tests, the loudest equipment that we have are actually two high-pack compressors in the back that provide high-pressure air for another set of tanks, right? So that equipment is the loudest that we have. We currently do run it every now and then when they're there. So the loudest noise that we could produce, they've already heard. And then this would actually take that compressor shed, if you look at where it is on the plan, takes it and actually moves it further from the property that he's speaking about, which is 41 to the right of our property. So it moves it further. The reason why it's a 20 by 40 structure, honestly, is just for spacing. We just want to have space around the machines in case we need to do any kind of maintenance or servicing or anything like that. And then also so that we can fit both, pressure compressors like air compressors and the vacuum compressors in that same space. That's kind of the main purpose why it's that size. On top of that, it would be a metal building, and like I said, it would place it further away and actually help to reduce the noise from the machines.
So you're stating that the tests you perform now are louder than what this air shed would put
Yeah.
on?
Oh, yeah, by a lot. Yeah,
And you
completely.
perform them during normal business hours and?
Well, yeah. A lot of our tests run after hours. There are some tests that we run during the day that are much louder than that shed will ever be.
Do you have manufacturer's specifications on decibel levels for these things? Or are they obtainable by you?
So the vacuum pumps we don't have on hand because obviously we haven't gotten permission to build a sphere, so we don't have that equipment. But for the other equipment that we have, we do have all the specifications for those and for the decibel levels and all that.
An air bank shed, that's not, obviously, it's not a compressor shed. Does that store air? Is that what that
Yes,
does?
they're just large vessels that just store air in them for use in the testing.
Does anyone else wish to be heard in this application? Does the board have any further questions?
Yeah, can we hear from Deirdre?
Yeah, Deirdre. I'm sorry, I didn't ask if planning's input.
Here, you're driving by, but again, it's in which you're going driving at some specifics. It's not like you're looking at people to like neighbors that you're driving by and it's not for enemies. It's not really road there in that sense. It's historic.
What would you say to the unsightliness of it? If there are light industrial and office buildings and they look at this tower, that's something we've never dealt with before. What would you say to that?
One thing that I can find that was semi-comparable and it's kind of nice that in general for silos is that it seems like they're structured around properties. Those seem to get the big variances That's just, it's their usual case. I don't know if it would make it, doesn't have to be the prettiest thing for us.
So with regards to the Raynor, I think they said Raynor, property, have you been able to, or anyone in your office been able to do some research on that? That vacuum sphere, if you want to call it that, that's been there forever?
It does show up on searching when the property did application to be there, but it itself never became totally sought.
Also, is there, I know there's an application pending for engineering. Is there anyone else that's going to, is engineering's application to review the use? Or are we kind of led by the applicant and engineering with more site plan type issues or structural? So,
I'm sorry.
So this is kind of like first and last bite. Yeah. Okay.
This is all very interesting to me. I personally would like to reserve and really research this. I don't know what the rest of the board feels.
I think it's a good idea, Mr. Chairman.
I agree only because there's nothing else like this. Well, there's one other apparently, and according to Deirdre, we seem to be the final arbiter on this, and we know almost nothing about it.
And this
We have a lot
that
of
was
questions.
built in 1986.
Which is not old because I was.
Were you born in 1986?
Yes.
You were
And
born
it's
in
not
19
almost 40 years ago. Thank you.
But I'm still stuck with how they can build that other one in 1886 and we don't have any. I know, that's what it.
There's, as far as I can tell, the CO for that property, there's like concrete pads that were CO, so maybe that could have been what was for this, like, there's no one that specific concrete pad, but other than that, there's no permits for it, there's no, it's just.
I'd have to think, and I'm not knocking your research on it, but I'd have to think if we dug a little deeper, there'd have to be some sort of paperwork for this vacuum sphere that was built on a property next to the airport. I'd have to think. So maybe we can try our best to, all of us, I'm going to try and dig with Mary a little bit too, to try and find some more information on that other property.
I agree with the chairman. I agree with the chairman. They built a similar structure. There's got to be something. I mean, was it the NASA component that they somehow didn't have to?
Quasi Rochester.
Yeah, right. They didn't have to comply. There's got to be something. There's not many 60-foot vacuum spheres in Iceland that I know.
I mean, the forest permit that's filed on their site is from 1992, so it wouldn't be then a CC. With that, it just says there's like permits for equipment, like permits for.
Right, but nothing for the sphere.
systems, like,
Right.
It doesn't specify, so something I could look into, try and go through the permits and see if it's noted anywhere, but
Good, okay.
hopefully I didn't find it.
So a quick recap, just from planning's point of view, if you're stating that you're not 100% against it if it was written properly, that it can only be, the structure can only be a vacuum sphere on this property. All right, does anyone else wish to be heard in this application? Does the board of, yes, sir, come on up, Mr. Kassam. Be careful getting up, these seats are terrible. We only provide the best seating in town of Islip in this auditorium.
What's that, sir?
So we only provide the best seating in this town of Islip for the auditorium.
I can see that. Public notice that I received, it says here, permission to erect a vacuum sphere having a height of 60 foot instead of the permitted height of 18 feet. I just wanted to bring that to the.
Yeah, so detached
board.
structures.
It's a substantial height.
Right, detached structures in industrial one are capped at 18 feet to our code.
Yes.
If it was attached to the building and stepped back, it could be up to 60 feet if it's an attachment to the building.
I understand. I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention. It's a substantial increase. I mean, this thing's a monster looking. You'll see it from everywhere.
We're definitely going to look into it. We heard you and we appreciate you. And we appreciate it all. And we're going to look into it and do our research.
Thank you for your time.
Make a motion to reserve decision.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We have
Just to
62.
clarify, with the, okay, so I was going to say, with the reserve decision, in the event you guys have any questions, are you going to be in touch with like my office or anything, or do you just render a decision at this point?
We're going to do our research and render decisions. Would you like to submit anything within a certain period of time? Is that what you're asking?
It's not,
Does reserving a decision prevent us from providing you any additional information that you?
Yes. If you want us to leave it open so you can provide us some additional information for a certain period of time,
I think that would be good.
what additional information would you like to provide us?
Anything else that would help you make your decision?
Well, you have to tell us. We don't tell you.
Yeah, so if you have something specific that you'd want to submit to us,
Like
we
if
can
you-
give you 2 weeks to submit before we.
If you uncover 5 more of these that we don't know about, apparently you didn't know about the first one.
I don't, does any of the support from the, federal agencies that we do work for, the DOD, help the cause, the Army, Air Force, Navy? Anyone?
How about this? I'll give you, if the board sees fit, 2 weeks to submit, and then we'll start a reserve. So whatever you feel that you want to give us to
Thank you.
strengthen your argument, if you want to call it that, you can submit within 2 weeks. That will start 62 days from that 2 week period.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a great night, all.
Great night. And also just to answer the traffic question, it doesn't increase any more traffic with the vacuum sewer. Everything should stay as it is.
Great. Thank you.
Okay.
Have a good night.
Number 768, Joe's Quick Mart LLC. Permission to leave fuel canopy having height of 22.3 feet instead of required 22 feet. Shed having rear yard of 2 feet instead of required 10 feet. Air conditioning unit having rear yard of 9.6 feet instead of required 10 feet. And ground sign having height of 16.6 feet instead of required, or permitted, I should say, 15 feet. Business 3 district. You have any spheres on that property?
No spheres that I'm aware of. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Daniel Baker, Greenberg Traurig, LLP. On behalf of the applicant, my address is 900 Stewart Avenue in Garden City, New York, 11530. Good evening, all. I'm here tonight on behalf of Joe's Quick Marts LLC. This application is for variances related to an existing gas station and convenience store at 1701 Union Boulevard in Bayshore. First thing I'd like to do, and this was part of the submitted application, is to actually remove the request for the sign, which is above the permitted 15 feet, but the applicant is going to reduce the sign so that it does comply. So we'd like to amend the application to remove that one.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
All right, so make a motion to remove ground sign having height of 16.6. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. So that leaves us with 3 variances as part of our application. The applicant bought this property from 7-Eleven in September of 2021. The existing conditions were there when they bought it. My understanding is that these existing conditions were also in place as far back as can be found to 2001. The variances that we are seeking are for maintenance of the existing fuel canopy, which has a height of 22.3 feet, where only 22 feet is permitted, so a very small amount above what is permitted. Maintenance of a shed in the rear of the property, which has a rear yard of 2.1 feet where 10 is required, and an air conditioning unit also in the rear yard that has a 9.6 foot rear yard where 10 feet is required.
What abuts the shed that's 2.1 instead of 10 feet?
My understanding, it's an industrial building back there.
Okay, yeah. Oh, the
So-
railroad tracks are right there, right?
Yeah,
Bayshore
so
Railroad,
most
yeah.
of this area is
I know.
one form of another of industrial or commercial uses. Again, we think it fits within the area. It hasn't been a problem as far as we know to date, and we don't expect it to have any impact on anybody.
Sure. Deirdre, I'm assuming no Objection from planning? Great. Does anyone wish to be heard in this application? Board have any questions? No one's here.
Never would have thought a gas station would be our easiest one of the time.
Yeah, right.
Mr.
I've
McCullough.
I've never had one this.
Mr. Cooley, I'll take a motion.
Motion to grant the application as amended.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Nice to see you all.
1991 Union Plaza LLC, permission to utilize 13.45% of mixed-use building for commercial purposes instead of minimum required 30% pursuant to Islip Town Code 68-257.1G, BD District.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Mark Saglioka, Sagliocca. Offices at 131 East Main Street, Bay Shore. I was going to say, it's tough following a vacuum sphere. It was a tough.
Let me ask you a question, Mr. Saglioka, if you don't mind. I hate
Yes.
to interrupt you. So you're utilizing 13.45% instead of minimum required 30. The other is medical? I don't know what the other percentages are being used as. I'm just curious.
So,
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, yeah, the 13.45 will be our commercial office, our realty office.
Gotcha.
Um,
I should have let you
The
speak.
photo in the files.
You're not going to let me do my spiel?
I'm sorry, you can
We
do
have
it.
an
I
old photo in
apologize.
the file.
Go ahead. I jumped to conclusion. I would get yelled at by my wife.
So, real quick, we purchased it in 91. And in February 2020, we received a change of zone from Business 1 to BD. Since then, we've worked with planning and engineering to design the building to accommodate 10 one-bedroom luxury apartments and approximately 900 square feet of office space, which we plan on using as our realty office that we currently have on Montauk Highway now. This building is directly across from the parking garage that they just built on Union. And previously, what was there was a number of doctors, dentists, on and off short-term leases, and the attorney who we bought the building from. With the arrival of Northwell, as everybody knows, physicians have been consolidating. The market for the medical at this site, because it's so small, kind of dried up and is really obsolete. So we have this little niche property that, again, the planning department worked with us to come up with these 10 one-bedroom apartments that we construct, own, manage. And the benefit here, obviously.
I'm sorry, Mr. Sagliocca.
Yes, Mr. Wexler.
I'm just, for my own edification, because of Northwell and all of the consolidation, the smaller medical units the need is drying up?
Yeah, I mean, you'll see it with Mr. Nazzaro's buildings. I mean, he's got these tremendous, beautiful buildings on Brentwood Road and Northwell, through consolidation of physicians, brought them onto Northwell, and now, I go to my cardiologist is there, my pulmonologist is there,
Right.
but they all had individual practices at one time. I mean, the days of GPs are pretty much
Right, so the
gone.
market has changed from.
It has.
Yeah, wow, I never thought that would be a.
It has, unfortunately. But to our benefit, in our rental community in Bay Shore, we have a real big desire for, nurses, interns, doctors, and whatnot, and especially in this parcel because it's right across from the hospital. I do have other projects that I could cite as examples, but I will say that for the most part, some of the residents, one or two of the residents we spoke to on Montgomery, did say that, in the previous years with the previous owner, that cars, there was an overflow, maybe with the dentist or the doctor. Again, I wasn't witness to that, but we're going to alleviate that altogether by having our own parking for our own tenants and by reducing the occupancy for the BD to 13.45. So there are other examples. I mean, we do have in BD 45 Fifth Avenue, which we built about 5 years ago. That's 5% of the office space on that building. 28 Fifth Avenue is 8%.
And we approved all these?
No, this was before the code change.
I think the code
Yeah,
amendment is
this
pretty
was
new,
all-
right?
I got caught just, yes.
Yeah.
So the town amended the code to have 30%, but market conditions changed notwithstanding the town's code. Is that-
Yeah, I mean, I will say that I think the planning board recognized the fact that this overflow of parking in this particular area that would be on Montgomery would be greatly reduced by reducing office space, because you have, I think it's, and Deirdre could attest to, I think it's 200 square feet per one parking space, which is a lot. So if that was 2,000 square feet, which would be the 30%, that's 10 extra cars. And if it's a dentist or somebody or whatever, an office, they're in and out, and, you just can't accommodate that many.
All right, Deirdre, any objection on that? Great. Does anyone wish to be heard in this application? The board of any, you'd like to be heard, sir? Name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. Robert Peterson, 46 North Montgomery Avenue, Bay Shore.
How are you tonight?
I'm the property owner to the north of the property in question. I have no objection to what he's asking for, and I've been pretty much on board with everything they're doing, the additional rise, the parking there. My neighbors, and I do have a little concern, is the parking. We had tremendous issues before the town came down enforcement and added the no parking in front of our properties. People park in front of the hydrants, the emergency entrance to Inadequate Village apartments, driving on the lawn, all over the lawn, with my rocks. I believe he's addressed the situation where he has enough property for parking there, but I just want to reiterate that the rest of my neighbors are really not on board with him being there because of the issue of the parking. And if we just kind of get some idea that we can kind of guarantee somehow or some way that.
But maybe I misunderstood. I thought Deidre told us that it would make the parking situation better.
It should. I believe he's got enough property, because it borders my property there. The amount of tenants that he has and the allowances for his vehicles for the tenants there. We're concerned though, because the parking restriction ends at 7 o'clock at night, Monday to Friday, that we're going to come back, from being at the ball game and 8 o'clock, the whole streets.
His proposal, what he's asking for is to clear it up for you, is making the parking situation better, not worse, because he's asking for less commercial space compared to
commercial,
the apartments.
More residential.
Yeah,
with
so.
Possibility of
yes.
additional apartments
Exactly.
or personnel living in there, which means additional parking necessary.
It should make it better.
We're hoping for, and I just kind of, if we're all on the same page here,
Yeah.
I'm satisfied.
Sure. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
So I would just like to reassure Mr. Peterson, the benefit of the 10 one-bedroom apartments, the code is 1.75 per apartment. And that came about, from a building we did about 15 years ago. So the benefit to the 1.75, it doesn't matter if it's a one-bedroom or two-bedroom. The benefit here is we only have one bedrooms. So the chances are, and I know this from managing all the other apartments we have, that we're really not going to have more than one bedroom, one car per apartment. So the town allowed us even to land bank parking spots, which is nice, because if it does become a problem, we can dig into those land bank spots that are on the property. And to Mr. Peterson's concern, I want to reassure him that nothing has changed at all from our original application when we first submitted to the town to change the zone. And it will, as the chairman stated, it will alleviate some of the parking, at least 5 spots, by reducing the 30% to the 13.45. We'll probably have 2 cars in our office, and they won't be there all the time.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to be heard? Does the board have any further questions? Mr. Wexler, I'll take a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll make a motion that we grant the application.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Application granted.
Thank you, Board.
Have a great night. We have 7 accessory apartment renewals.
Motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, hold on, we got one more to flip. We got 11 two-family use only renewals. Take a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we have some decisions to read
A
in.
few decisions to read in.
Hearing.
Oh, this one?
Thank you. Anybody have one? Mostly. Application number 329-22, Maria Grant. In accordance with the proposed written decision dated October 18, 2022, the application is denied with regard to front yard occupancy, however granted, front yard occupancy not to exceed 40%, granted as to the remainder. On motion of
All in favor?
Aye.
application number 530-22, Teresa Rakowski. In accordance with the proposed written decision dated October 18, 2022, the application is granted. On motion of
Motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
application number 456-22, Brian and Rosie Rosenthal. In accordance with the proposed written decision dated October 18, 2022, the application is granted. On motion of
All in favor?
Aye.
application number 658-22, Richie Cerisier and Monburn. In accordance with the proposed written decision dated October 18, 2022, the application is granted for a period of 3 years. On motion of
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
application number 577-22, Wassam Messiah. In accordance with the proposed written decision dated October 18, 2022, the application to renew the accessory apartment is granted for a period of 1 year. On motion of
Motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
application number 585-22, Michael Maffetone. In accordance with the proposed written decision dated October 18, 2022, the application is denied as submitted as to the two-story addition having a side yard of 5.05 feet. However, granted permission to erect a two-story addition with the first story having a side yard of 5.05 feet and the second story have a side yard of no less than 12 feet, and granted as to total side yards. On motion of
Motion.
anybody?
All in favor?
Aye. That's a wrap. Are we on next?
Make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Are we all? Are we on next?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't know if you wanted to send.